Chapter 31-22. Ni Ruopen frowned tightly as the expression on her face turned strange. This stench of blood was not an ordinary kind of pungent smell. Especially when faced with so many dismembered corpses pouncing towards her. Ni Ruopen felt her stomach churning. Ruopen! Ruopen! Lu Xiaoyu and the rest saw Ni Ruopan's pale face and were shocked as they cried out Ni Ruopan's name. They stood in the array barrier, and when they saw this scene, they felt their scalps go numb as they felt extremely disgusted. Not to mention Ni Ruopan, who was in close proximity with that group of monsters. Lu Xiaoyu worriedly shifted her gaze to Yiqing Luo as she hugged her arm and was about to speak. But she saw Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly. That arc was extremely devilish. Inexplicably, it calmed down Lu Xiaoyu's worries and panic. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her voice was calm and steady. Raise the sword in your hand and slash forward, displaying the first form of the 15 styles of flowing cloud storm. Yiqing Luo's voice was like a clear spring, flowing into Ni Ruopan's heart. It made Ni Ruopan's flustered and frightened heart immediately calm down. Her body instinctively started to move according to Yiqing Luo's words. The long sword danced and the sword waves followed the profound waves, one round after another, creating ripples. The sword body turned. The sword light floated. Those corpses which had already pounced in front of Ni Ruopan were forced to retreat several steps by this sword light. And making use of this gap, Ni Ruopan's figure moved. The long sword in her hand was like the floating clouds and flowing water, drawing out the sword waves. Following that, it turned into a gust of wind, speedily attacking the enemies in front. Swish swish swish, the sword shadows flickered. Dong dong dong. Following that, it was the sound of a heavy object falling onto the ground. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them. Those 7 to 8 corpses which surrounded Ni Ruopan were all slashed by the sword light and their limbs were separated as they fell onto the ground. Of course, this wasn't the most shocking thing. What was shocking was, this time, those corpses which fell onto the ground didn't get up again. They were like pieces of soulless puppets which lost control and didn't move at all. Xiang Xingfa's face turned pale. He took a few steps forward and glared at the 7 or 8 corpse puppets on the ground. He clenched his fists and shouted, "All of you, get up!" During the conversation, Xiang Xingfa's clenched fist emitted a gust of yin qi. The yin qi quickly darted in the direction of the undead puppet. However, the yin qi lingered above the undead corpse puppet, drifting in a circle. It disappeared into thin air. The undead puppets were still lying on the ground, lifeless. Xiang Xingfa's clenched fists trembled and drooped down. On his face, there was a rare look of panic. How is this possible? Wasn't the secret weapon of Gloomy Palace invulnerability? How could he be killed by that little girl's sword? Am I dreaming? Our secret weapon is obviously invincible and all-conquering. How could he be defeated? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. The disciples of Abyss Palace stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Following that, each of them hugged their heads and brainwashed themselves. Facing the shock of the people of Abyss Palace, as well as the fangirls of the students of Devil class who were shocked and in awe. Chapter 31-23. The students of the Devil class opened their bright and sparkling eyes, as their mouths gave out joyful shouts. One by one, they rushed out of the spirit formation with their weapons in hand. When the last person left the spirit formation, Yiqing Luo asked Dmo Xian to remove the enchantment. She held on to Dmo Xian's palm as her brows curved into crescents. "We've agreed on this, you're not allowed to lay a hand on these corpse puppets." Dmo Xian shook his head helplessly. His eyes were filled with love and helplessness, almost drowning in his warmth. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she tugged Dmo Xian's hand, giving a mischievous and ridiculing look as she swept past those dumbstruck secluded palace disciples. She said, "As for the other humans, birds, and magical beasts, I'll leave them to you." Her voice wasn't low. Those from the Dark Nether Palace could hear it clearly. The expressions of the disciples of the Dark Nether Palace quickly changed from shock to shock and fear. They abruptly raised their heads and stared fearfully at Dmo Xian's direction. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly at them, but her words were directed at Dmo Xian. "Xian, if today you kill more enemies than me, I will give you a reward." Dmo Xian's long and narrow peach blossom eyes narrowed. "This trick, just coax those brothers of yours." Yiqing Luo blinked her quick-witted eyes as she put on an innocent expression, tilting her head as she laughed softly. "Don't tell me, Xian doesn't want my reward?" Dmo Xian's eyes dimmed as his large palm suddenly clasped Yiqing Luo's little hand. His slender fingers gently scratched the center of her palm. That itchy touch made Yiqing Luo's petite body shudder suddenly. Instinctively, he wanted to retract his hand. But when she looked at the man's eyes, they were as bright as obsidian, but as deep as the sea, dark and gloomy as if they were hiding some kind of shocking deep meaning. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped as it pounded fiercely. Her charming eyes also unconsciously wanted to shift her gaze away. Dmo Xian released her hand. Without waiting for her to speak again. The man had already turned into a blur, disappearing in front of her. In the air, the man's elegant sandalwood scent seemed to be lingering around her. "Ah!" Suddenly, a shrill and miserable cry resounded from nearby. Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of the voice. An afterimage moved between the disciples of the Palace of Darkness at the speed of light. Everywhere it went, it would flick away wave after wave of dark secluded palace disciples and those demon beasts controlled by the Swanee, causing them to fall to the ground. That afterimage flew past. Yiqing Luo could vaguely discern it. It was a purple figure. It was Xian. Yiqing Luo's eyes were tainted with a smile. It seemed that Xian cared a lot about the reward she mentioned. In order not to lose to Xian, she also needed to work hard. Yiqing Luo took out a specially refined long sword from the profound phoenix ring and weighed it in her hand. Then, he leapt up and started fighting with his brothers. Weapons for the brothers of devil class. In the past 3 days, Shi and Tang Beiyuan had extracted Dark Yin's psychic power from the Hall of Artifact to forge weapons. Because Old Man Tsang wasn't here, she wasn't too proficient in controlling the Azure Dew bracelet. She only tried to extract a little bit of Dark Yin's psychic power. The weapons that were manufactured were only 50 over pieces. It was more than enough to deal with these defective undead corpse puppets. But if it was those semi-finished products or finished products which she had seen previously, these weapons could at most delay the speed of the corpses. Chapter 31-24. But from the looks of it, Elephant Saint technique seemed to only be able to control these defective undead puppets. Hence, in a short span of 1 hour. On this battlefield, the only ones who could stand were the members of Devil class and the 2 gigantic magical beasts. In addition to that, Elephant Saint technique. On the battlefield, there were corpses everywhere, as fresh blood stained the ground red. No matter how one looked at it, it was a ghastly sight. The brothers of Devil class, after going through this bloody battle, all revealed a tired expression on their faces. After all, they were only 10 over people. Whereas the other party, including the flying beasts and land beasts, had at least 1,000 of them. No matter how they were beaten. In terms of stamina, they couldn't keep up. The excitement from before had completely turned into exhaustion. They were covered in blood from head to toe. They had their own. There were also secluded palace disciples, magical beasts. They stood weakly behind Yiqing Luo, panting heavily, as they passed a medicine bottle to each other. This was the enhanced version of the elemental energy pills which Biming Lulu specially prepared for them. It could replenish their stamina quickly. You've worked hard. Yiqing Luo inserted the long sword in her hand into the ground, as she raised a bright smile and looked at them. You guys are great. The brothers of the devil class all revealed expressions of ecstasy on their faces. To them, there was no encouragement or praise, which could be compared to Yiqing Luo's recognition of their ability. Yiqing Luo smiled again. Then her vision looked towards a pale-faced middle-aged man who was standing next to a pile of corpses not too far away. Her lips curled into a smile. Elephant Saint technique, now. Who is the one who will not be able to return? You. You guys. Elephant Saint technique couldn't believe his own eyes. He couldn't believe that the secret weapon which they were so proud of was slashed by those ordinary grade, miraculous grade weapons, to the point where it could no longer be awakened. One must know. Secluded Palace's secret weapon was really impenetrable by water and fire. Even those cultivator family's people, whatever supreme grade weapons they took out, were unable to stop the undead puppets from crawling up again, and continuing to attack. Why? Why were Yiqing Luo and the others able to deal with the undead puppets which had no weaknesses? All of Elephant Saint Technique's self-confidence, at this moment, collapsed. His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were dark and ruthless. Where was the slightest bit of his previous flirtatious, carefree, and evil smile? Here, let me calculate. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her vision kept sweeping past the corpses strewn all over the ground. Following that, he rubbed his chin and raised his head to look at Dmo Xian beside him. Ah Xian, both of us, seems to have killed the same number of people. Equal. Dmo Xian raised his brows, his deep eyes stared at her with a smile yet not a smile. Yiqing Luo raised her chin up high as she replied in a tsundere manner, if I say it's a tie, it means it's a tie. Dmo Xian gave a low laugh, sounding a little helpless. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to speak again, the man's long arm moved and pulled the young lady into his arms. He raised his hand and pinched Yiqing Luo's chin. He bent down and bit her on the lips. He curled his lips as if he had obtained a satisfactory deal. He compromised with a smile and said, all right, then it's even. Yiqing Luo continued to act tsundere as she turned her head away. Dmo Xian chuckled, his large palm caressed her hair, his eyes filled with mirth. That kind of doting attitude. It continued to dazzle everyone's titanium alloy dog eyes. Not far away, Elephant Saint Technique's face was gloomy as he looked at the scene in front of him. Taking advantage of the fact that the two of them were being sweet. Chapter 31-25. Everyone in Devil class was in the midst of the excitement of victory, but also physical and mental exhaustion. No one had noticed Elephant Saint Dharma's actions. But, unfortunately, although Yiqing Luo was being tsundere with Dmo Xian, her gaze was still fixed on the direction of Elephant Saint Dharma. After noticing Elephant Saint Dharma's actions, her lips curled as she held the long sword which was inserted into the ground and raised a sword wave. The silver sword ray flashed and a gale rose as it flew towards the direction of Elephant Saint Dharma. Damn it! Xiang Xingfa was forced to stop chanting, and he quickly retreated. Elephant Saint Dharma, don't try to escape with your tricks. Yiqing Luo raised her long sword again as the silver blade gave off an extremely resplendent glow. Now, the number of people I and Ah Xian have killed is equal, so you're the only one left. Her fingertips moved. The sword ray exploded and the momentum was like a rainbow. If I kill you, I will win, Ah Xian. How can you run away? Just as she finished her words, Yiqing Luo moved. The long sword in her hand swirled up a sword wave. Elephant Saint Dharma squinted his sinister eyes. He could tell at one glance that Yi Qing Luo's swordplay was not familiar and full of flaws. Did this silly lass really think she was omnipotent? Ha! Just based on this kind of mediocre swordplay. She wanted to capture him. Let's see how he would catch the flaw and capture her. Elephant Saint Dharma sneered as his lips twitched. Just as Yi Qing Luo's long sword carried the majestic sword qi and pierced downwards. He didn't evade as he raised his hand and turned it into a palm wind as he struck towards Yi Qing Luo's flaw. Yi Qing Luo was obviously panicking. She quickly tried to withdraw her long sword. How would Elephant Saint Dharma give her this chance? He leaped up and chased after her. Just as Elephant Saint Dharma was feeling complacent and thought he could capture Yi Qing Luo, that retreating young lady suddenly stopped in her tracks. An extremely shallow but evil smile appeared on her beautiful face. Elephant Saint Dharma's expression changed as he suddenly realized something. Damn it! He was tricked. He quickly concealed his aura and tried to avoid it. But it was too late. The girl suddenly raised the long sword in her hand. The long sword transformed into countless swords that were as thin as wings. Endless xian waves lingered around the long sword and dispersed. Go! Following Yi Qing Luo's command. The countless swords that were as thin as wings rushed towards Elephant Saint technique. Layers upon layers, light and thin, like the drifting clouds in the sky. The violent sword light caused the surrounding air to tremble violently. Visible ripples also appeared in the air. Holy Elephant had nowhere to run. His eyes widened as his face was filled with terror and unresigned hatred. Yi Qing Luo, you despicable villain. He actually pretended that his swordsmanship was not good enough to lower his guard. Then, he would lure him into a trap and finish him off in one strike. Too despicable. Elephant Saint Dharma finally understood it. Why was it that whenever Wolf Saint techniques, Butterfly Saint techniques and the others mentioned Yi Qing Luo, he looked like he was gnashing his teeth in anger? Despicable. Do you have the right to say this word? Yi Qing Luo sneered as a steady stream of profound energy was injected into the long sword. The sword qi became more and more turbulent. Almost at the next moment, it was about to envelop Elephant Saint Dharma and swallow him up completely. Just at this critical moment. Chapter 31:26. The black wind howled, as though a malicious spirit was howling. It brought along a bone-chilling cold intent. In an instant, it enveloped the Elephant Saint technique. The dazzling sword gleam clashed against the black wind. The two forces collided. Strong gales were stirred up in the surroundings, constantly beating against the surroundings. Rumble, a deafening explosion shook the ground. The two forces collided and exploded with a loud bang. The air waves rolled and the wind howled. Yi Qing Luo frowned as she stared at the direction where the strong qi spread. Just as she was about to go forward, a hand hooked onto her waist. Tightly, she was pulled into an embrace. The man hugged her with one hand. The other hand was raised as his sleeves fluttered. The shimmering purple light turned into a ray of flowing light as it scurried forward. But in an instant, the rolling air waves in front of them had already dispersed. In front of them, there was no Elephant Saint technique and that strange black wind. Where are they? What's going on? Where did that black wind come from? How could they possibly escape under our eyes? They definitely haven't gone far, let's chase. Devil Class's students looked at the empty direction in shock as their faces revealed an angry expression. We won't be able to catch up. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand, indicating for them to calm down, that black wind's power is very strong and very strange. So be it if they escaped. To be able to rescue them under Dmo Xian's and hers eyelids. It showed how strange that black wind was. Since that black wind dared to appear so boldly, it must have 100% confidence. Even if they chased after them, it would only be a waste of energy. Moreover, after their brothers had gone through this battle, they were indeed tired. She kept her long sword and looked at Devil Class and the rest. As long as Elephant Saint Technique is in the Palace of Darkness, there will be another chance to cross hands. Now that he has escaped, he can bring the news that we can deal with the corpse puppets back to the Palace of Darkness. At least, for a short period of time, the people from the Palace of Darkness will not dare to act rashly. Time after time of crossing hands. It could be said that the Palace of Darkness was exhausted to the extent of exhaustion. To be able to invade the South Continent under such circumstances, what they relied on was the corpse puppets. Now, the undead corpse puppets had a nemesis. Unless the Palace of Darkness sent those semi-finished undead puppets to test the waters. Otherwise, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness could only choose to bide their time and observe while repairing the corpses and puppets. During this period of time, the people from the Dark Nether Palace probably wouldn't attack again. He would take this opportunity to forge another batch of weapons. Most importantly, Yi Qing Luo was also waiting for Old Man Song's return. Let's go back and rest first. Yi Qing Luo looked at the expressions on everyone's faces. They were still somewhat hesitant as she spoke out with a smile. Following that, she took the lead to hold on to Dmo Xian's arm as they strode towards the open city gates. Everyone in Devil Class looked at each other. In the end, he still followed them. Yi Qing Luo raised her little chin as she rested it on Dmo Xian's arm. Ah Xian, since the Great Elephant Saint Technique has run away, then the two of us should still be based on the same amount, so the reward that I promised you earlier has to be cancelled. Dmo Xian met her crafty eyes and his thin lips curled up into a smile. In his deep eyes, there was also a bottomless tranquility. Just like there were words in his smile. The group of them walked into the city gates. The deafening cheers caused them to be slightly startled. The soldiers rushed forward excitedly as they hugged the bunch of brothers from Devil Class tightly. The brothers from Devil Class were first overwhelmed and not used to it. Chapter 31-27. The Great General also walked over from the top of the city walls. His eyes were red and he was so agitated that he wanted to hug Yi Qing Luo to express his gratitude and excitement. Among the soldiers, a hug was the highest form of etiquette. However, there was an invisible barrier that stopped him in his tracks. The Great General was stunned as he looked at Dmo Xian in a daze. Instantly, he reacted. He scratched his helmet awkwardly and laughed joyfully. I've overstepped my boundaries. Miss Yi, thank you, really thank you. It's you who saved the South Continent, saved all of us. While he was speaking, the usually strong and unyielding Great General couldn't help but choked with sobs. He kept on thanking her agitatedly. He simply couldn't believe everything in front of him. As though he was in a dream. This bunch of young lads and young ladies actually had such powerful battle power. The Great General who had been on the battlefield for so many years, how could he not tell? These young lads' battle awareness and standard had all gone through special training. They displayed the true meaning of fast, vicious, and accurate to the fullest. Moreover, these youngsters were able to deal with those monsters which they had racked their brains but were unable to deal with. No. Not only were they unable to deal with them. Even Gufeng's sect master and the Imperial Palace's reinforcements had suffered numerous losses in the hands of those monsters. But these 10 young lads had annihilated the enemy's army. Flying beasts and secluded palaces' disciples, those monsters were all killed. Moreover, these 10 people were not in any danger. Looking at them, it was as though they had walked out from a blood pool, covered in blood, but their expressions didn't show any signs of pain. Apparently, they had only suffered some superficial injuries. The West Continent's heroine was indeed worthy of the hero title. Those young lads and young ladies beside her were absolutely not ordinary people. These children could almost be called as talented young lads and young ladies. In future, they would definitely be famous in the Nirvana realm. So many talents. They were actually kept by Yi Qing Luo's side. Moreover, they were extremely loyal. The great general suddenly thought of something. He suddenly widened his eyes as he stammered, These children, don't tell me they are the World Mercenary Group's mercenaries. The World Mercenary Group. They had all heard of the Defiance mercenary group that had soared to the top of the world of mercenary groups in a short period of time. The momentum of their growth was comparable to the current palace of gloomy darkness. It was said that in the first month of the establishment of the regiment, thus, they were able to complete the most difficult and complicated mission. He had successfully infiltrated the Death God Castle and returned safely, completing his mission. Later on, it was said that they recruited a group of elite veteran mercenaries. Under the orderly and strict management, everything was done in an orderly manner. In a short period of time, the World Mercenary Group had already developed into a large-scale mercenary group. Although, the World Mercenary Group was currently just a silver plate mercenary group. But their strength was definitely beyond the gold medal. Yi Qing Luo smiled, That's right, they are indeed the World Group's brothers. Speaking of which, it had already been a long time since she returned to the World Group to take a look. However, Holy Pirate, that old man, was here. The World Group would definitely become the #1 mercenary group. When the great general heard this, the expression on his face immediately became extremely excited. Chapter 31-28. Great General. Yi Qing Luo interrupted the great general's agitated words, We're a little tired. May I know if there's any place in the city where we can rest? The great general was stunned but quickly reacted as he scratched his head, I'm so sorry. I'm a boorish man and I don't know how to look at the timing. Yes, although the city had been destroyed by secluded palace, but there's still a place to rest. The place to rest was a well-preserved inn 500 meters away from the city gate. After walking to the inn, Yi Qing Luo's line of sight was placed on the huge mansion which was a few hundred meters away from the inn. There were groups of soldiers standing at the entrance of the huge mansion. Indistinctly, they could hear someone's voice coming from the mansion. That's the safe zone. The refugees all stay there. The great general explained by the side. Yi Qing Luo nodded. Miss Yi, fellow heroes, this way please. The great general stretched out his hand as he led everyone into the inn. The group of people stepped into the inn. Today, everyone can rest here for a night. Tomorrow we'll return to Gufeng sect. Patriarch will definitely treat you with great hospitality. The great general cupped his fists towards everyone as he said respectfully. Hospitality is fine but there's no need for hospitality. Yi Qing Luo smiled, secluded palace has yet to retreat so other matters are not suitable to be handled. Right. The great general smiled embarrassedly as he scratched his head, then you guys rest first. I still have to return to the city gate to keep watch. When the reinforcements arrive, I'll let them rest for a night and not disturb your rest. Reinforcements. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly, prepare some medicine. They might be injured. Almost 2 hours had passed. The reinforcements had yet to arrive. Apparently, they were held up by something and were unable to rush over. Which meant that a fierce battle was bound to happen. Although the great general had his doubts, but he didn't voice it out as he nodded in response and left the inn. After the soldiers left, those devil-class students who had been pretending to be serious instantly laid paralyzed on the ground. There were a few who flew towards the kitchen, trying to find something to drink or eat. Before they could move, they suddenly smelled a fragrance as it seeped into their noses. Shortly after, a red figure walked over with a large tray in his hands. The youth's expression was cold like frost, and there was not a trace of warmth in his eyes. His red robe did not make him look beautiful at all. Instead, it made him look even more austere. Food. He spat out 2 words coldly and slapped the tray. The tray landed steadily on the table in the middle of the inn. When the brothers of Devil Class saw this figure, they were all stunned as they stared with their eyes wide open. Chu Wuxin. Lu Xiaoyu looked at the piping hot and fragrant dishes, then looked at Zhu Wuxin, who had no warmth on his face, and shuddered. Are you sure that this is for us to eat? Zhu Wuxin glanced at her coldly, as if mocking her. Isn't this nonsense? Lu Xiaoyu shuddered again. If it had been anyone else, her words would indeed have been nonsense. But the one who prepared the meal was Zhu Wuxin. Death God Castle Master Zhu Wuaxian. It was a cold and emotionless face paralysis. Surely there wasn't poison in this food, right? If I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't need to poison you. Zhu Wuaxian seemed to have seen through everyone's thoughts as he spat out every single word in an icy cold voice. Chapter 31-29. Devil Class's Crowd. The meaning behind his words. This bunch of them were merely incidental. Did they need to be so honest? Are you eating or not? Seeing the 10 over of them staring at him, Zhu Wuaxian's brows creased impatiently. The 10 over of them moved in unison as their gazes shifted towards the extremely fragrant dishes on the trays as they swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Eat. Want to eat. But really, could they eat? Zhu Wuaxian's impatient cold eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, if they don't eat, you finish it yourself. Yiqing Luo expressed that this child's EQ was so low that it made one's hair stand on end. If only she wasn't the person who was pestered by Zhu Wuaxian. She absolutely had a stomach full of words to roast about Zhu Wuaxian's method of wooing girls. She didn't know who was the one who guided him behind the scenes to these messy ways of wooing girls. That person probably didn't know how low Zhu Wuaxian's EQ was. After the big battle, when she was both physically and mentally exhausted. As a warm man, Zhu Wuaxian personally cooked for her, and those brothers of hers, to cook. This action simply caused the favorable impression to go through the roof in minutes. Coupled with that good looks of his, any girl would be smitten by him. Of course, other than her, whose mind was filled with Dmo Xian's looks, was the exception. But unfortunately, Zhu Wuaxian's mouth couldn't spit out any nice words of love. Was he forcing her to eat the food that he personally cooked, or forcing her? Since when did we say that we're not eating? Devil Class's brothers, hindered by Zhu Wuaxian's powerful aura, pouted as they complained softly. Although their voices were soft. But in the spacious and quiet inn's main hall, it was clearly transmitted into everyone's ears. Zhu Wuaxian's cold eyes swept across. Devil Class's brothers shrunk their necks. In their hearts, they were silently thinking, with this attitude, he still wanted to woo their boss. Learn more from the Overlord. Looking at the atmosphere in front of them, it was gradually turning stiff. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and cleared her throat. Young Master Zhu said that this is prepared for everyone, and since everyone is hungry, there's no need to reject it. She pulled Dmo Xian and took the lead to walk to the table in the center, pulling the chair over to sit down. All right, don't just stand there. After you've filled your stomach, just find a room and rest for a while. Devil Class brothers first hesitated for a moment. Then, step by step, he slowly moved to the table. While observing Dmo Xian's expression, he paid attention to Zhu Wuxin's expression. Then, he sat down anxiously. Dmo Xian was unperturbed as he received the wooden chopsticks from Yiqing Luo. His lips curled into a faint arc as he started to eat. The few of them looked at each other. There was another moment of silence. They picked up their wooden chopsticks and started eating. Not far away, Zhu Wuxin's eyes were cold and emotionless as he looked ahead. He started to gorge himself like a refugee fleeing from a famine. His cold and solemn face had a slight change that was hard to detect. If one looked closely, perhaps he could see it. The cold and hard lines on his face softened a little. His thin lips, unknowingly, curled into an extremely shallow arc. After some time, he seemed to have realized his own changes. His brows creased, as though he was trying to escape from something, as he took quick steps towards the direction of the kitchen, walking over. Chapter 31:30. Yiqing Luo had gone through close to 2 hours of battle and her stamina had been depleted quite a bit. Adding on to that, Zhu Wuxian's culinary skills were indeed not bad. These dishes were all made according to her favorite taste. Yiqing Luo ate very comfortably. As she was eating, her waist suddenly felt itchy. Her petite body shuddered slightly as she dodged to one side. She raised her head from the bowl and stared at the man next to her. "Stop fooling around." Dmo Xian had long put down his chopsticks as he lazily leaned against the back of the chair. One of his hands was still on her waist. Following that stare from her, the man's slender fingers once again squeezed a little harder. His thin lips curled upwards as his narrow peach blossom eyes were filled with a deep glint, unable to see through his thoughts. But Yiqing Luo could obviously feel that a dangerous aura was spreading. Her slender brows creased as she put down her chopsticks. Her little hands silently stretched under the table as she held onto the man's messing around big palm. Following that, she gave him a warning stare. This was the main hall. As long as those devil-class brothers lowered their heads slightly, they would be able to see their hands intertwined under the table. If they were really caught red-handed by the devil-class brothers, she would really have no face to meet these bunch of brothers. Dmo Xian lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes as the young lady's hand, which was held tightly, suddenly exerted force. The young lady's hand was held in his palm. His slender fingers gently tickled the young lady's palm. Yiqing Luo's body shuddered again. "What's the matter?" Lu Xiaoyu, who was sitting opposite, noticed something wrong with Yiqing Luo as she looked at her in puzzlement. Immediately, everyone's gaze turned towards her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened as her lips twitched and finally curled into a smile as she shook her head with a dry smile. "No, nothing." Lu Xiaoyu and the rest stared at Yiqing Luo in puzzlement and looked at the side at the extremely lazy and contented overlord. Following that, all of them retracted their gazes. Overlord and Qing Luo were so close to each other. If Qing Luo felt uncomfortable, Overlord would definitely be the first to discover it. Hence, everyone started to pick up their chopsticks as they continued to struggle. Yiqing Luo tensed up her body and maintained the calm expression on her face. She naturally leaned towards Dmo Xian's direction. "What are you doing? Did you have a good time eating?" Instead of answering, he asked back with a lazy smile on his face. Yiqing Luo, was this the sign of someone getting jealous again? When they started eating, wasn't he very calm and collected? Facing Yiqing Luo's frenzied and helpless body, Dmo Xian smiled without saying a word. However, the fingers of the hand that was holding her little hand started to tickle her palm again. His fingers, which were slightly calloused, rubbed it skillfully. Yiqing Luo only felt goosebumps appearing on her skin. An indescribable feeling pervaded the air. "Right, Qing Luo." Yan Xiao-yi suddenly thought of something and raised her head. Yi said that the class leader's goo poison can be temporarily suppressed for a period of time, but this method can only treat the symptoms and not the root cause. We still have to try our best to cure the goo. Ah, Zhan He. Ah. Yiqing Luo was just about to open her mouth. The man started to intentionally create trouble again. She was so numb that she lost her voice for quite some time. Devil Class's brothers' gazes were filled with puzzlement as they looked towards her. Chapter 31-31. He's awake. Lu Xiaoyu nodded. But he still needs to rest for another half a month. Yan Xiao Yi, in this half a month, Yi has to suppress the goo poison in his body every 3 days. Suppress it once every 3 days. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly, then will it affect Zhan's body? Half a month later, if we don't suppress it, will Zhan be controlled by the goo poison again? There will definitely be an impact. Yan Xiaoyi lowered her gaze and sighed out helplessly. After suppressing it within this half a month, the goo poison in Zhan's body will enter a deep slumber for at least the next 3 years. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly. Perhaps the atmosphere was a little depressing. Dmo Xian did not deliberately tease her. He just gently held her hand, giving her warmth. Qiao Jin saw that Yan Xiaoyi's emotions had also sunk down as he smiled lightly and caressed Yan Xiaoyi's head, immediately raising his head and looking at Yiqing Luo. Yi said that with your strength, you'll definitely be able to head to the upper realm within 3 years. At that time, bring Zhan along with you to the upper realm. You can look for his aunt and the previous saintess of the Miao tribe. They'll definitely have a way to help you get rid of the goo. Yiqing Luo nodded. Ziqing will take good care of the monitor, and Lulu will watch over there. The monitor will be fine. Lu Xiaoyu clenched her fists and said firmly. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes lifted up slightly as her gaze swept past the few people in front of her and her lips curled into a huge smile. Amen, it will definitely be alright. Alright, I've already told all Luo about the class president. Don't talk about it anymore. Qiao Jin looked at Yiqing Luo. Director still has a few words for us to pass to you. Dean. Yiqing Luo was momentarily stunned. But very quickly, he remembered that the current director of the Heavenly Academy was that crazy old man Guo Yu. The dean said. Qiao Jin cleared his throat and immediately assumed the posture of old man Guo Yu, imitating his tone, little brat. You haven't come back to see me for such a long time. Believe it or not, I'll teach that younger brother of yours to become a heinous student. He paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and continued to imitate. I already guessed that you would definitely help the South Tide continent when it was in danger. It just so happens that the bunch of brats in your class have been nagging about escaping from the academy every day and secretly looking for you. Now, I will send a few students with decent strength to capture you. Over at the South Billow continent, whatever you want to do, just go ahead and do it. With this daddy here to clean up your mess, you don't have to be afraid of anything. Although the first part of his words was very rude and he seemed to be very angry, Lin Mingya did not expect him to be so rude. But behind it, it was obvious that he was worried and concerned about her. She was the one who brought old man Guo Yu to this world. The second was an elder who cared for her very much. Cough, cough. After Qiao Jin finished imitating, he coughed again. He patted his chest and recovered his own voice. I've conveyed the message, he also said. After the South Continent's matter is over, he wants us to kidnap you and bring you back to Heavenly Academy. I don't think it's possible to bring him back. Yiqing Luo smiled. After the South Billow Continent's matter is over, I still have to make a trip to East Billow Continent. Yan Xiaoyi, are you going to leave your heroic deeds in every continent in Nirvana Realm? Chapter 31-32. Before collecting the 4 sacred beast pearls, Yiqing Luo temporarily didn't want to tell all the brothers in Devil class that she was heading to the upper realm. If he told them in advance, it would only make them more worried. After all, the upper realm, for the people of the Nirvana realm, it was a place that people yearned for, but it was also a very dangerous place. Oh right. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly thought of something. Kitty originally wanted to follow along, but the dean and Master Gue Wu seemed to have something to deal with and couldn't leave. So young Master Mo forcefully kept Kitty by his side and stayed in the Heavenly Academy. She blinked her beautiful eyes. Young Master Mo asked me to tell you not to worry about Kitty. He will take good care of Kitty. This Mo, abducting someone is so open and above board. She had such a cute little kitten. She was abducted by him just like that. However, with Kitty Lee's temperament, if she really didn't want to stay by Zomo's side, he would definitely turn the world upside down, and he had to escape no matter what. It could be seen that Kitty Lee was actually reluctant to leave Mo. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue. Forget it, a grown girl can't be kept at home. My little kitten has really been abducted by a wild man. Wild man. In the minds of the brothers in Devil class, Zomo's image surfaced. Soon after, they all nodded in agreement. He did look like a wild man. The atmosphere gradually returned to normal. The group chatted as they ate. Over this period of time, everyone's affairs were summarized in a concise manner. This also allowed Yi Qing Luo to understand the recent developments of Devil class in Heavenly Academy. For example, Lu Xiaoyu, Tao Tao, and the others had already joined the Devil class. For example, Lu Xiaoyu found evidence of Si Yanmu colluding with the dark forces in the President's Office of Faculty Council. As a result, Si Yanmu was arrested and Lu Xiaoyu replaced him as the new president of the Heavenly Academy. For example, when they were preparing to interrogate Si Yanmu, he was taken away by the people from the dark forces. It further confirmed that Si Yanmu was a member of the dark forces. Because of this, the Si family also suffered. With the cooperation of Monarch and Yi Fengyu, the Si clan was uprooted. And so on and so forth. In the end, the conversation stopped at a student who couldn't hold on and fell asleep against a pillar. Yi Qing Luo then asked everyone to find their own rooms to rest. Silence gradually returned to the whole. Yi Qing Luo yawned and leaned into Dmo Xian's arms, her arms hooked around his neck. Ah Xian, hug. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped, his languid peach blossom eyes twinkled with a devilish glint. He raised his thin lips and looked at the girl with a faint smile. Then, under the girl's charming gaze, he slowly bent down and whispered into her ear, "You know how to please me. This means that you know where you went wrong." This low and hoarse voice had a magnetism that made people sink into it. It hooked Yi Qing Luo's little heart, thumping non-stop. Her body trembled slightly. The more the man enjoyed it. The lips that were right next to her ear parted slightly. His thin lips brushed past her earlobe. Yi Qing Luo's fingers gripped Dmo Xian's robes tightly. Lil Luo eating another man's food in front of me, eating it so deliciously. You deserve to be punished. Every word he said was magnetic and mellow. I was really hungry. Yi Qing Luo explained softly. Quibble. Chapter 31-33. Ouch! Yi Qing Luo groaned in pain. This feeling of pain and numbness was so unfamiliar that she couldn't get used to it. She was just about to slide her hand down from Dmo Xian's neck to push him. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching. Soon after, a cold voice said, "I'm hungry." His tone was calm. Just by hearing it, he knew who it was. Yi Qing Luo's hand froze on Dmo Xian's neck. She was in a daze for a long time before she regained her senses. Her cheeks suddenly turned red. Holy sh*t. How could Zhu Wuxin appear at this time so coincidentally? This posture, damn it. No matter how he explained it, he couldn't explain it at all. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed as though she was the one who had hooked her arms around Dmo Xian's neck, acting coquettishly to ask for kisses. Being intimate and loving in private is fun. When they were being intimate, they were seen by others. This was awkward, moreover, it was the kind of awkwardness that couldn't be more awkward. However, Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with curses, but Zhu Wu Axian didn't seem to mind at all. Zhu Wuxin's face was still cold, and there was no warmth in his eyes. He stared at her and repeated word by word, "I'm hungry." Dmo Xian hooked Yiqing Luo's petite figure as he held her in his arms, not letting Zhu Wu Axian see her flush-red face. To Dmo Xian, Yiqing Luo's demeanor was like a girl next door. It was enough for him to appreciate it alone. "If you're hungry then go and eat, don't disturb me and Lil Luo's rest." Dmo Xian held Yiqing Luo in his arms as he headed towards the second floor. Zhu Wuxin's figure flashed and blocked in front of the two. He was expressionless as he repeated, "I'm hungry." His icy cold gaze was not directed at Dmo Xian. But he stared straight at Yiqing Luo whose back was facing him. Even though Yiqing Luo's back was facing Zhu Wu Axian, she could feel Zhu Wuxin's ice-cold gaze, which seemed to be covered in frost, piercing her back. In particular, the man who was hugging her had increased his strength. Obviously, this vinegar jar had been knocked over again. In Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo patted her face, trying hard to restore her complexion back to normal. He then lifted his head up from Dmo Xian's arms and looked at Zhu Wu Axian. "I'm hungry." Seeing Yiqing Luo looking at him, Zhu Wu Axian narrated the story expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. "Didn't you prepare quite a lot of food in the kitchen earlier? Why didn't you eat when you're hungry?" "My hand hurts," he answered decisively. "Yiqing Luo, what kind of stupid reason was that? Hand pain. How did he cook when his hands hurt?" "So..." Yiqing Luo dragged out the last word, waiting for Zhu Wu Axian's next sentence. Zhu Wu Axian didn't beat around the bush as he stared straight at Yiqing Luo and spat out two words decisively, "Feed me." This time, Yiqing Luo was really speechless. They had gone one big round. Just for this purpose. He wanted her to feed him. "You can cook, but you can't eat." Wasn't this excuse a little too lame? "I'm hungry." Seeing Yiqing Luo not moving, Zhu Wu Axian's eyes turned even colder. Yiqing Luo, she expressed that she really couldn't feed him. Only when she was extremely hungry, she ate the food that Zhu Wu Axian personally cooked. A certain overlord's vinegar jar had already flipped several jars. If she fed it to Zhu Wuxin, probably she was going to drown in vinegar. She absolutely couldn't feed him. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat. "Master Zhu, I'm really tired. This overlord will feed you." Chapter 31-34. Just 4 words, but it made Yiqing Luo felt as though she was struck by lightning. Did she hear it wrong? What did Dmo Xian say? He was feeding Zhu Wuxin. Wasn't this style too beautiful? She couldn't even imagine it. Yiqing Luo looked at Dmo Xian with a complicated expression as she held his arm. "Ah Xian, you don't need to feed him," his hand. Before he could say the word "I'm fine." But when she saw Dmo Xian's displeased gaze, she stopped talking. He raised his hand and his slender fingers gently pinched Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes were as deep as a deep pool, bottomless. "Don't tell me you want to feed him yourself." He lowered his voice to a whisper. It sounded very calm and indifferent. But to Yiqing Luo, who understood Dmo Xian well, how could she not hear the displeasure in Dmo Xian's tone? Yiqing Luo felt a chill on her neck as she coughed lightly. "No, what I mean is, don't bother." The word "him" had yet to leave her mouth when she was once again stopped by Dmo Xian's half-narrowed peach blossom eyes. Dmo Xian's fingers gently caressed her cheek. Soon after, his hand slid down from her face. He slowly walked toward Zhu Wuxian. His expression was calm, but his aura was released invisibly. Aren't you hungry? Why are you still standing here? Zhu Wuxian's expression changed slightly as he stared at him coldly. I want Yiqing Luo. Unfortunately, everything that belongs to Lil Luo belongs to me. Dmo Xian's lips curled upwards, his smile was filled with ridicule, with a hint of boasting. After all, this hand of yours was only used to save Lil Luo, That is the only reason why others were able to take advantage of you. Since your hand is in pain, as Lil Luo's fiancé, I will naturally return this favor on behalf of Lil Luo. As he spoke, he was already in front of Zhu Wuxian. Dmo Xian's altitude was half a head higher than Zhu Wuxian. On top of that, he released his majestic aura. The two of them stood close to each other. Their auras were fully unleashed, and their energy surged. This scene, no matter how one looked at it, it was a ghastly sight. But Yiqing Luo somehow felt that this scenario had inexplicably taken another direction. Two men of the highest quality. They all had different styles. One was domineering and noble, while the other was cool and elegant. As they stood together, their eyes met. Yiqing Luo inexplicably saw a kind of bromance. When this thought flashed past her mind, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but shudder. She shook her head hard to get rid of this messy thought. Facing Dmo Xian's overbearing manner, Zhu Wuxian's brows creased even tighter as his thin lips moved slightly, about to open his mouth. However, he was interrupted by the man's voice. Young Master Chu, aren't you very hungry? How did he still have the strength to make excuses here? Or could it be that young Master Chu's hand doesn't hurt at all, and it's just an excuse to feed my fiancé to you? When he said the last sentence, he deliberately raised his tone. His words were filled with disdain. Zhu Wuxian's face twitched. The coldness in his eyes became more and more terrifying. His 5 fingers that were hanging by his side were tightly clenched into a fist, and he did not speak for a long time. After Yiqing Luo heard Dmo Xian's words, she finally understood Dmo Xian's intention. Dmo Xian could also tell that Zhu Wuxian's hand totally didn't affect his eating. Dmo Xian opened his mouth. How would Zhu Wuxian continue to insist on letting her feed him? But at the next instance, an icy cold voice broke her thoughts. I'm hungry. Hearing these 2 words, Yiqing Luo felt as though she was struck by lightning. Chapter 31-35. Dmo Xian went into a blank. Zhu Wuxian's face was cold and his gaze was icy cold as he stared at Dmo Xian. Don't dare. He was expressionless. But the corners of his lips were faintly curving upwards. Apparently, he was intentionally provoking Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo, who was watching by the side. These two were testing each other. They were sure that the other party didn't dare. But if they didn't play the cards according to common sense, these two, surely they weren't going to put on a gay scene, right? Although, one of them was her boyfriend. But while she was still imagining this scene, she was still inexplicably excited. After all, these 2 men were the world's top existences. However, Yiqing Luo didn't have the chance to see this scene. Dmo Xian was already sneering as he hooked onto Zhu Wuxian's shoulder. This lord will feed you personally, enjoy it. Saying that, he hooked onto Zhu Wuxian and headed towards the direction of the kitchen. The 2 men's aura clashed. The energy surrounding them seemed as though they were about to start fighting if there was any disagreement. Just as the 2 of them were about to disappear around the corner, Yiqing Luo hurriedly followed up. She had just taken a few steps when Dmo Xian's deep voice stopped her. Go back to the room to rest, I'll be back to accompany you in a while. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo to reject. Dmo Xian had already hooked onto Zhu Wu Axan and disappeared. Yiqing Luo stood on the spot as she was stunned. She really didn't need to follow them. Those two really wouldn't fight. Yiqing Luo thought about it and still felt worried. She chased after the direction where the two of them disappeared. But where were Dmo Xian and Zhu Wu Axan in the kitchen? She released her sense of perception and sensed the surroundings. She didn't sense their presence at all. Yiqing Luo frowned. These two. Wasn't it just feeding them? Why were they nowhere to be seen? After searching for one round, there was no result, so Yiqing Luo could only find a room to wait for Dmo Xian to return. Zhu Wu Axan's hand was injured. Dmo Xian wasn't a willful person. It shouldn't be a big matter. As she was thinking, perhaps she was too tired, Yiqing Luo leaned against the headboard and in a daze, she fell asleep. He didn't know how long he had rested. By the time Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, she was already lying on the bed. One hand was circling her waist. His two strong and long legs were also firmly hooked around her. The man's head rested on her neck. His warm breath blew down from time to time. This posture, some were too intimate. Are you awake? A man's low and hoarse voice came from above. His voice was hoarse after waking up. It was full of magnetism. When he opened his mouth, his breath sprayed on her skin. Her body couldn't help but tremble. She stuffed it into his arms. When did you come over? Feed Zhu Wu Axan until he's full, then he'll come over. Dmo Xian hugged her tightly. Upon mentioning Zhu Wu Axan, Yiqing Luo turned around and faced him. You really fed Zhu Wu Axan? Dmo Xian's eyes darkened as his deep eyes gazed deeply at her. Cough. If you don't want to say, then don't say. Yiqing Luo, who was getting goosebumps from his stare, lowered her head and stuffed it into his chest. Since you've slept enough, then let's settle the debt between us. Dmo Xian took a deep breath of the fragrance on her body. Suddenly, his arm exerted strength. Yiqing Luo's body was lifted up forcefully. Chapter 31-36. Settle accounts. Settle what accounts? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. Dmo Xian's peerless countenance was magnified in her eyes. Ah, Xian. Yiqing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand and blocked Dmo Xian's face. Are you still jealous? Can't you tell that I have no feelings towards Zhu Wu Axan at all? Dmo Xian laughed lightly, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable. Yiqing Luo, all right, if it was her. She would also feel uncomfortable. Then, how do you want to settle the accounts? Yiqing Luo compromised, but she stared at him righteously. This is an inn and it's not a safe place. Things that cross the boundary absolutely cannot be done. She had just finished her words. Suddenly, the man was like a ferocious beast as he bent down and gave her lips a fierce kiss. Yiqing Luo, F***CK. He totally didn't hear what she said earlier, right? Yiqing Luo wanted to struggle. But the man's violent kiss slowly turned gentle. Initially, it seemed like he was venting something. Now, it seemed like he was confirming something. Such complicated emotions made Yiqing Luo's struggling movements gradually slowed down. She stopped resisting. Lil Luo, Not knowing how long they kissed, his low and hoarse voice brought with it an indescribable emotion. Do you feel that I'm very overbearing? He hugged her tightly. The strength in his hands was very tight. Yiqing Luo raised one hand and hugged him back. indeed very overbearing. The man's hand on her waist tightened. Yiqing Luo's next sentence followed closely, overbearing, isn't it because you care about me? She raised her eyes and looked at him with a smile, I like it when you're overbearing towards me. Dmo Xian looked at her quietly. His eyes were deep and serene like a deep pool. She was unable to see through his eyes. Yiqing Luo's long curly eyes quivered as she raised her hand and caressed his face. Ah Xian, what's the matter? The man's emotions were obviously not right. Dmo Xian didn't say a word. He was still using this complicated emotion to look at her. After some time, he slowly lowered his body. He pressed his lips against her forehead. His arms pulled her tightly into his embrace. The man's disappointed voice sounded a little ethereal. Lil Luo, I'm very scared. This was a feeling he had never felt before. He even felt that he would never have such a feeling in his entire life. But, while facing Yiqing Luo, he truly felt what the word fear meant. Dmo Xian's tone made Yiqing Luo's heart tremble slightly. She raised her head and held his face with one hand. She slowly approached his lips and kissed him. Why? I'm very happy to see you continue to grow. But, every time I see the effort and price you have to pay for your growth, my heart aches. My heart aches so much that I wish I could keep you by my side and not let you suffer any harm. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled fiercely. She hugged Dmo Xian's waist tightly as she spoke in a resolute tone. So, in order to not let you worry, I will become stronger, so strong that no one can hurt me. But by then, will Lil Luo still need me? Dmo Xian laughed softly as his voice sounded a little ethereal. Need. Yiqing Luo nodded her head vigorously without any hesitation. Her two hands were like a koala bear as it entangled Dmo Xian tightly. If there's no Xian, there's no meaning for me to become stronger. Dmo Xian's body stiffened slightly. Following that, he relaxed. Chapter 31-37. Yiqing Luo rubbed her little head against his chest. Xian, we've agreed to be together for the rest of our lives. Not only in this lifetime. The next lifetime, the life after that, the one after that. Anyway, we're going to be together. The young lady's sweet voice was like a warm spring, seeping into Dmo Xian's heart. It warmed Dmo Xian's panicky and scared heart. Alright, my Xian has always been confident and flamboyant. You should believe in your own charm, that you can charm me till I can't see any other man. Yiqing Luo raised a big smile, her little body moved into his arms. After that, she propped herself up and cupped his face with both hands. Her slender fingers pinched the skin on the side of his cheek and gently tugged on it. I love your peerless face so much. He chuckled. His big palm raised and held her little hand, his eyes were filled with a faint smile. In that case, if one day, I don't have this face, I won't be able to charm you anymore. Charmed. As long as it's you, Xian, just a breath, you can make me fall head over heels. Yiqing Luo hooked his neck. Xian, you have no confidence in yourself. The two of them stared at each other. The man's ink-black eyes gazed deeply at her, as if he wanted to completely integrate her into the deep pool of his eyes. After a while, his thin lips curled up slightly and gently kissed her lips. Very lightly, just purely on her lips. After that, she heard his light to ethereal voice. It's not that I don't have confidence, but I care too much, so I'm too afraid. Yiqing Luo's brows raised slightly. The long and narrow arc drew out an enchanting meaning. She suddenly increased the strength of her hands. She wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. Her body leaned forward. She forcefully kissed his lips. Ah Xian, I also care about you, so. I will always be with you, you won't lose me. Dmo Xian's pupils shrank slightly. Immediately, he turned his hand and pressed her down. Changing from passive to active, fiercely sucking in her delicate fragrance. This kiss was like a raging fire being ignited. Yiqing Luo realized something and wanted to stop him. After all, the location wasn't right. But when she met the man's pair of eyes that seemed to carry thousands of spring water, so gentle that it could almost squeeze out water. All her voice was stuck in her throat. Almost without any resistance. Just as the heavenly lightning struck the earthly fire, suddenly, a rumbling sound was heard. Something seemed to have collapsed. Immediately, it was Yan Xiaoyi's voice, F***CK. Zhu Wuxin, are you sick? If you woke up early, then go to the kitchen and cook. What are you doing running around? Are you a F***King Peeping Tom? Xiao Yi, calm down. Young Master Zhu might have just walked into the wrong room. Qiao Jin's voice followed closely behind. Wrong my ass. He's just jealous that we're a pair and is thinking of ways to take revenge on us. Yan Xiao Yi was infuriated. Qiao Jin comforted in a low voice. The noise in the hall also died down a little. Inside the room, the movements of the two people, Sky Thunder and Earth Fire, froze. Then, they looked at each other for a long time. Yiqing Luo regained her senses from the beauty and immediately pushed Dmo Xian away. I told you, you can't do things that cross the boundary. The location and time are all wrong. Dmo Xian's body stiffened as he was pushed away by Yiqing Luo. His expression was as black as the bottom of a pot. Yiqing Luo swiftly tidied herself up, as she was too embarrassed to look at Dmo Xian. She just slid down from the bed. Chapter 31-38. Chef. Yan Xiaoyi choked on Zhu Wuxin's words. She did not understand what he meant. Zhu Wuxin was expressionless. You want me to cook? Are you treating me as a chef? Last night, didn't you go to the kitchen yourself? Yan Xiaoyi's mouth twitched. She really couldn't understand Zhu Wuxin's thoughts. Zhu Wuxin explained in a cold voice, last night I cooked for Yiqing Luo. If I cooked for her alone, she wouldn't eat it. Yan Xiaoyi. They were just incidental. She was very clear about this, okay? Yan Xiaoyi suppressed her anger and gritted her teeth. Is this the main point? Was that the point? Is this it? Facing Yan Xiaoyi's frenzied roars, Zhu Wuxin clearly did not feel the slightest bit guilty or had any intention of explaining. Qiao Jin's soft voice could be heard throughout the entire hall. After Yiqing Luo tidied herself up, she turned back and took a look at the man who was still lying on the bed with a face as black as charcoal. She coughed softly and leaned forward to give him a firm peck on the cheek to comfort him. He climbed off the bed and said, I'll go out and take a look at the situation first. We'll have plenty of time in the future. Yiqing Luo had just moved to the door. Behind her, the man suddenly chuckled. She stopped in her tracks and immediately turned around. The man reclined on the bed. Between his peach blossom eyes that were as bright as obsidian, there was light overflowing with color, like embellished stars. His black hair was scattered on his messy purple robe. There was also a strand of ink-black hair that slid across her robes, revealing a large portion of her skin. His skin wasn't extremely fair, but it was healthy and masculine. From Yiqing Luo's angle, she could clearly see the man's perfect abs, all the way down. Moreover, at this moment, the man's thin lips were raised, and his smile was extremely devilish. Yiqing Luo could only feel her blood rushing to her head as she swallowed her saliva. Motherf***. This was a feast for the eyes. It was simply delicious. She really wanted to swallow him into her stomach in one gulp. Towards Dmo Xian's honey trap, Yiqing Luo had never had any self-control. There's still a long way to go. Perhaps he heard the sound of the girl swallowing her saliva. Perhaps it was because of the young girl's naked gaze that was burning hot. The smile on the man's face became more and more magnificent. They were like beautiful flowers blooming in front of his eyes. The whole world was a riot of colors. Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red. I'm looking forward to it, my little, just now. Dmo Xian chuckled again. That seductive attitude made one unable to control themselves. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she was escaping as she dashed out of the room. Her cheeks were burning hot and she couldn't calm down no matter how hard she tried. How could he understand the true meaning of only in the future? Yiqing Luo rushed out of the room and shut the door tightly. Even though there was a door between them, she could feel that the man's burning gaze was still fixed on her body. Yiqing Luo tried her best to retract her attention from Dmo Xian's earlier banter and ridicule. She tried her best to look downstairs. Like I said, the future is long. It wanted to swallow Dmo Xian. Any time is fine. Now, it was better to focus on the dispute that had started early in the morning. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and adjusted her emotions. Downstairs in the main hall, Yan Xiaoyi stepped on a long bench as her face was filled with anger. Whereas Qiao Jin was half hugging her as he whispered something, probably coaxing her. Chapter 31-39. What's the main point? Zhu Wu Axian stared at Yan Xiaoyi as he spoke in a cold voice. It was better if he didn't ask. This question made Yan Xiaoyi fly into a rage. The main point is, what are you trying to do? By running around the room so early in the morning. Don't you know that you can't barge into a lady's room? If you see something which you shouldn't see, are you able to take the responsibility? What do you have that you shouldn't see? Facing Yan Xiaoyi's anger, Zhu Wu Axian remained calm. Yan Xiaoyi clenched her fists tightly. What do you mean by this? What are you trying to express? Zhu Wu Axian was expressionless, the literal meaning. Zhu Wu Axian. Yan Xiaoyi's fists were clenched so tightly that it made a cracking sound. Just with this attitude of yours, you still want to snatch the Overlord's woman. Save it. The Overlord is many times better than you. Unless Qing Luo is blind, she will not choose you and abandon the Overlord. Save some energy, don't dream of such unrealistic dreams. This kind of words could be said. Devil classes 10 over students had said it countless of times in their hearts. But this was the first time they said it out in front of Zhu Wu Axian. It could be seen that Yan Xiaoyi was really infuriated. Xiaoyi. Qiao Jin's expression changed as he immediately circled Yan Xiaoyi tightly, pulling her down from the long bench and blocking her behind him. Qiao Jin looked at Zhu Wu Axian with a grave expression as he opened his mouth, wanting to explain. But after seeing Zhu Wu Axian's icy cold gaze, he still dispelled the thought of explaining. As a man, Qiao Jin was very clear about this feeling. Although Zhu Wu Axian's expression of emotions was different from others. But he could tell. He was serious towards Yiqing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi's words, although were the truth. But to Zhu Wu Axian, it was pricking his heart. No man would be willing to be compared with another man, especially by the brother of the woman he loved. Forget about the comparison. But he was said to be totally incomparable to that man. Based on Zhu Wu Axian's character. How could he possibly accept it? As expected. Zhu Wu Axian, who was standing opposite, was no longer that kind of coldness which he could still endure. But it was a kind. It was extremely indifferent, so cold that there was not a trace of warmth or emotion. There was also a faint killing intent that spread out. Xiao Jin's expression grew increasingly grave. He firmly protected Yan Xiaoyi behind him as he vigilantly released his profound energy. Once Zhu Wuxin made his move, he would fight to the death to protect Yan Xiaoyi. An austere aura pervaded the whole. The hurricane swept up the dust on the ground. Tables and benches were constantly rubbing against the ground. "You, what are you doing?" Suddenly, a young girl's clear voice floated down from upstairs. Xiao Jin's eyes lit up as he immediately looked towards the direction of the voice and called out, "Qing Luo." Meanwhile, Chu Wu Axian also raised his head, as he looked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. His deep, black eyes were filled with a piercingly cold light. It was like a sharp frost blade on 1,000-year-old snow, causing people to shudder. However, this only lasted for an instant. The next moment, Yi Qing Luo only felt a cool breeze caressing her face. In front of him, a blazing red figure enlarged in his eyes. Not knowing when, Zhu Wu Axian had moved in front of her. A hand grabbed her wrist tightly, as he raised it up. "I've been looking for you for a long time, so you're in this room." He opened his mouth coldly, without any fluctuations in his tone. Yi Qing Luo frowned, as she tried to struggle free from Zhu Wu Axian's hand. Chapter 3140. His strength was so strong that her wrist was starting to hurt. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even tighter. Just as she was about to open her mouth to ask Zhu Wu Axian to let go of her. Below, Yan Xiaoyi was suddenly enlightened as she pointed at Zhu Wu Axian. "You scurried around the rooms early in the morning, just to look for Qing Luo's room?" Zhu Wu Axian didn't even give her a glance. He stared at Yi Qing Luo without blinking as his voice was icy cold. "Why are you hiding from me?" Hiding? Did she hide from him? Yesterday it was because she couldn't find a place for them to feed each other, so she casually found an empty room to rest. Furthermore, he scurried around the rooms early in the morning to look for her. What was he up to? "Last night, I was trapped in the kitchen by his barrier." Zhu Wu Axian's expression was solemn. "After I came out, I couldn't sense your presence in the inn." He suddenly increased the strength in his hand. It made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased once again. But he didn't notice it as his voice was deep and cold. "You belong to me, you can't hide from me." Yi Qing Luo, here it goes again. Was he done yet? Why was it that every time they talked about this topic, she and Zhu Wu Axian seemed to be from two different worlds, not on the same channel? Why didn't Zhu Wu Axian understand her rejection? Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath as her peripheral vision shot towards that tightly shut door behind her. Logically speaking, based on that vinegar jar's character, he should have rushed out long ago. But Dmo Xian was still in the room, with no intention to stop Zhu Wu Axian at all. What was this rhythm? What was Dmo Xian up to this time? Just as he was about to patiently declare his rights once more, Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. Suddenly, her wrist was violently pulled by someone. Zhu Wu Axian's long arm locked her tightly. Not in his arms, but clamped down on her petite body, making her totally unable to move. This made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows crease tightly. Damn it! Wasn't his hand hurting? Why did he have so much strength when his hand hurt? Not waiting for Yi Qing Luo to curse silently, she had rushed out hurriedly and had not combed her hair, so Zhu Wu Axian tugged on it. The force wasn't great, but it was still a little painful. Zhu Wu Axian, what are you doing? Yi Qing Luo clenched her teeth as she really wanted to slap this lunatic to death. Zhu Wuxin brushed her hair aside. His vision was fixed on Yi Qing Luo's exposed neck. That pair of eyes that were as cold as ice instantly squinted, reflecting the piercingly cold light of a sharp blade. You slept with him last night. Zhu Wuxin's ice-cold voice was deep and cold. His stiff fingers, one by one, loosened Yi Qing Luo's hair. Following that, one by one, they loosened their grip on Yi Qing Luo. The minute Yi Qing Luo broke free from the restraints, she immediately took a few steps back. While frowning, she massaged the place where she was scratched and sneered coldly, "What are you doing so early in the morning? There are hickeys on your neck." Zhu Wuxian's gaze was icy cold as his vision seemed to pass through Yi Qing Luo, directly penetrating her neck which was below her fine black hair. Hickey. Yi Qing Luo immediately raised her hand and covered her neck. Recalling Zhu Wuxian's action earlier. Surely it couldn't be just to see the hickeys on her neck, right? Xian. That shameless man. No wonder he sat in the room so calmly and didn't come out. So, he was planning to use the kiss mark to force Zhu Wuxin to retreat. You slept with him last night. Zhu Wuxian's expression was gloomy and between his brows, there was a chilly intent. Chapter 31-41. Yi Qing Luo. Zhu Wuxian's voice suddenly became heavier. Both his hands suddenly placed on Yi Qing Luo's shoulders. Answer me, isn't it? His tone was still icy cold but it was filled with questions. This attitude made Yi Qing Luo's brows creased even tighter. Her pink lips were tightly pursed as her face surfaced some anger. She glanced sideways at the hand on her shoulder. Following that, she raised her hand and patted the hand on her shoulder. Zhu Wuxian, what answer do you want to hear from me? She looked at Zhu Wuxian calmly. Xian is my fiancé, my man. Even if something happened between me and him, that is something that should be expected. Zhu Wuxian's expression instantly sunk as he raised his hand to grab her. Don't say things that will make me angry, you are. Zhu Wuxian, Xiao Yi said something earlier which is very right. Yi Qing Luo interrupted Zhu Wuxian's words as she took a step back to avoid his touch. Don't deceive yourself and others, living in an unrealistic fantasy. This is the last time I'm saying this to you. I don't belong to you, not in the past, not now and not in the future. Her voice could be said to be extremely indifferent. And it was stern and firm, without any room for resistance. Zhu Wuxian's hand froze in midair. He clenched his fists tightly. All the muscles in his body were tensed up at this moment. His expression was like frost, so cold that it could cut through one's bones. That pair of icy cold eyes seemed to be filled with ice shards. The vortex in his eyes kept on surging wildly. There seemed to be a voice clamoring in his heart. They were clamoring for him to destroy all of it. To destroy everyone Yi Qing Luo relied on, everything, every place. After that, to imprison Yi Qing Luo by his side, to accompany him for eternity. That thought kept on surging in his mind. Like a raging wave, it kept on surging. Zhu Wuxian's current gaze was so strange and terrifying that even Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. His eyes were so cold that they seemed to be able to cause her heart to stop beating. The powerful and shocking aura was accompanied by an intense murderous intent. Yi Qing Luo's pupils constricted violently. A strong sense of unease spread from the bottom of his heart. She also released her perception on her own. His body also assumed a defensive posture. This action also stung Zhu Wuxin's eyes. The murderous aura in his eyes became even more violent and ferocious. She was actually afraid of him. She actually isolated him outside. She was actually guarding against him. Miss Yi. Di Zun. Are you awake? Just as you expected, the reinforcements are all heavily injured. Those bastards from the Palace of Darkness are too despicable. Suddenly, a deep, resounding, and urgent roar came from outside the inn. The general and a few soldiers rushed in with big strides. Yiqing Luo's gaze went past Zhu Wuaxian, as it floated downwards to the main hall. The soldiers supported many of the heavily injured soldiers into the inn. The hall was instantly filled with the smell of blood. Yiqing Luo frowned as she didn't have the mood to continue tangling with Zhu Wuaxian. She retracted her gaze and was just about to speak to Zhu Wuaxian. But Zhu Wuaxian only used that pair of extremely indifferent and filled with endless whirlpools as he fixed his gaze on her. Just one look. Zhu Wuaxian's figure seemed to have blended into the air as he disappeared. Chapter 3142. She called out Zhu Wuaxian's name as she sensed her surroundings. But there was no response to her. There was only a cool breeze blowing gently. She didn't sense Zhu Wuaxian's presence. He wouldn't. Had he really left the inn? The human face was still hidden in his arm. If the human face took the opportunity to leave his arm, it would be extremely difficult for them to find that piece of human face again. But Yiqing Luo didn't have the time to look for Zhu Wuaxian. In the main hall, more and more injured soldiers and disciples dressed in the Imperial Palace's uniform were supported in. Yiqing Luo could only put Zhu Wuaxian's matter aside. Although Zhu Wuaxian's character was a little cold, but he wasn't someone who didn't know how to look at the bigger picture. Unless the thoughts had just surfaced in her mind. Behind her, there was a warm and thick chest wall. The man's hand hooked onto her waist. He gently lifted her up. Her body, along with this force, fell directly into the main hall. The Grand General immediately went up to them. "Overlord, Miss Yi, I'm so sorry to disturb your rest so early in the morning. But these brothers can't wait." Yiqing Luo's vision swept past the injured people in the main hall as she asked in a deep voice, "What's going on?" "Yesterday, we requested for reinforcements. The soldiers stationed in the other strongholds in South Tide Continent received the emergency signal, and while they were rushing over in batches, they were ambushed by the monsters." The Grand General clenched his fists tightly. Yesterday that batch of Palace of Darkness's disciples and the monsters were simply a cover. They were simply trying to attract our attention, then taking the opportunity to attack the other strongholds. As he said that, he hugged his head in extreme frustration as he clenched his fists tightly and pounded his own head fiercely. "I shouldn't have sent out the emergency signal. I shouldn't have let them rush over to help. It's all my fault to let them fall into such a dangerous situation. Grand General, it's not your fault. It's Palace of Darkness. Palace of Darkness is simply too despicable and shameless." The other soldiers immediately rushed up to stop the Grand General. The Grand General's muscles tightened as he looked at Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo with reddened eyes. "Overlord. Miss Yi, I beg you. You must save these brothers. Yesterday, Xiang Xingfa's attack on Valley Wind City with the undead corpse puppets, the flying demonic beasts, and the disciples of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness were all just a pretense. His true goal, it was actually other fortresses. After they finished dealing with Elephant Xingfa and the others, before the reinforcements arrived." Yiqing Luo had indeed guessed it before. The reinforcements were on the way, but they were blocked by other teams from the Palace of Darkness, which delayed them. But he never thought that Xiang Xingfa was not the main attacker. She thought that she had successfully repelled the Palace of Gloomy Shadows and protected the Three Valley Wind City. In fact, it was just a bad plan of the Dark Palace. This knowledge made Yiqing Luo's expression sunk instantly. She glanced sideways and exchanged glances with the man beside her. She pursed her lips. "Ah Xian, if this move of the Palace of Darkness is really a plan, then the Palace of Darkness is indeed an opponent that cannot be underestimated." Dmo Xian hugged her waist tightly as he comforted her and squeezed. "But this move of the Palace of Darkness also means that the Palace of Darkness is already unable to hold back and wants to quickly invade the South Continent. As for why they want to increase the speed and use such a risky method, there is a possibility that something has happened internally in the Palace of Darkness. Chapter 3143. Right. Secluded Palace was in such a hurry to invade the South Continent. It must be because something had happened within the Secluded Palace. Otherwise, Secluded Palace would absolutely not waste a huge amount of manpower and resources at this critical juncture to hasten the speed of invading. The Elephant Saint technique would appear at the Valley Wind City's gates, which meant that the people from Secluded Palace knew that she and Dmo Xian had come to the South Continent, which also meant that the people from Secluded Palace had no time to care about their existence. Secluded Palace only wanted to reach their own goal as soon as possible, as long as they invaded the other strongholds in the South Continent. Then, the last Valley Wind City, even with Yiqing Luo and the others around, Secluded Palace had the absolute confidence to take it down. Save them first. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists as she suppressed the guesses in her heart and started to help the injured soldiers to treat their wounds. It could be said that Secluded Palace's plan this time was extremely ruthless. There were at least 300 to 400 soldiers who died under the sneak attack. Even the Imperial Palace's disciples had died over 10 people. Those who were seriously injured and rushed to Valley Wind City added up to about 100 people. Moreover, their injuries were extremely serious. It could be seen that these soldiers had all escaped from a life-and-death situation. Indeed, once the corpse puppets made their move, these soldiers were not a match for the undead corpse puppets at all. Miss Yi, those monsters are very sinister. Not only are they impenetrable, water and fire resistant, we have no way to resist. The most important thing is, if we are scratched by those monsters on our bodies will also undergo changes. The Grand General's voice was cold and hard as his eyes turned red as he stared at his brothers in the main hall. His voice was trembling. Those wounds, some of them will cause our brothers to turn into rotting corpses. Right in front of us, they will start to corrode slowly from the wounds. And some of them will have a huge change in temperament. They will start to attack us. It's like they have become one with those monsters. But their battle power is much lower than those monsters. When the Grand General said this, his voice was already choking. Miss Yi, you and your mercenary brothers can deal with that bunch of monsters, so you will definitely be able to save them, right? Today, the Great General could only place his hopes on Yiqing Luo. She was his group of brothers who had gone through life and death together for so many years, their only hope. After listening to the Great General's words, Yiqing Luo's expression turned even more grave. That group of monsters are known as corpse puppets, and they are battle-type puppets which are refined from dead corpses using a sinister secret method. Therefore, the bodies of the puppets were filled with evil miasma. This miasma can be transmitted into a person's body through a wound, and from there, it can corrode the body. She thought. The evil miasma required at least a semi-finished corpse puppet to have such a function. Unexpectedly, these defective products could actually use miasma to affect humans. However, she was able to deal with the undead corpse puppets because she had Yoin's mental power. However, the method to purify the miasma in their bodies, she didn't know what to do. Looking at the pleading eyes of the Great General, as well as the expectant gazes of the soldiers, Yiqing Luo couldn't say anything to destroy their hopes. She pursed her pink lips and tried to think of a way to purify the miasma in her mind. She wanted to calm everyone down first. Just as he was about to speak, Chapter 3144. The moment this voice was heard, immediately, the entire inn fell into a strange silence. All the soldiers' gazes were directed towards Dmo Xian. Their eyes were filled with reverence. Even those soldiers who were covered in blood and riddled with scars, propped themselves up and looked towards Dmo Xian. Regarding the Overlord's prestige, they had all heard of it. The rumored Overlord, to them, was a godlike existence. To be able to see the Overlord's face with their own eyes. This was something that they didn't even dare to think about. Reverent and admiring gazes were all gathered on Dmo Xian. But towards these reverent gazes, Dmo Xian was already used to it as he wasn't moved at all. He gently raised his palm and gently placed it on Yiqing Luo's slender shoulder as his tone was gentle and filled with pampering. Lil Luo, the defective corpse puppets have not been processed and the evil miasma on them is extremely dense. Don't try to purify it easily as it will affect you. Miasma. Yiqing Luo wasn't unfamiliar with this term. She instantly understood the meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. The last time at the Miao tribe, she had seen the effect of the corpse puppets on the Miao tribe's guards. She was also clear that the remnant yin qi on the corpse puppets would corrode into the human body and infect them. She had not expected the defective corpse puppets to have such great destructive power. No wonder the secluded palace could make use of these batch after batch of defective products to start a war without any fear. The corpse puppets were impenetrable, impervious to fire and water. It itself was an existence that defied the heavens. Using the corpse puppets as weapons. Even if it was a cultivator, they would be helpless against the corpse puppets and could only passively take a beating. Not to mention, after being injured by the corpse puppets, they would also be corroded by the corpse puppets' miasma. In this way, battling against the corpse puppets, not only were they unable to hit the corpse puppets, they had to try their best to ensure that they could not be touched by the corpse puppets. To these generals and soldiers, it was like this. It was indeed something that was impossible to achieve. They were able to escape from the hands of the corpse puppets to Valley Wind City, which was already considered incredible. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips and looked up at the man beside her. I'll leave it to you. I'll go talk to Bei Yuan and see if we can refine more weapons as soon as possible. Dmo Xian ruffled her hair. Yiqing Luo took a look at Tang Bei Yuan's direction. Tang Bei Yuan nodded slightly before turning around and walking into the room she had rested in the night before. Yiqing Luo took a step forward. Just as he reached the stairs, suddenly, a weak voice came from behind. Thank you, Madam D. Yiqing Luo's footsteps halted. Empress, Madam Emperor. The way Lin Mingyao addressed Lin Mingyao made her cheeks flush. One of them thanked him. Very quickly, the other soldiers all propped up their injured bodies as they respectfully thanked Yiqing Luo. Thank you, Imperial Madam. Thank you, Overlord, for saving us. Although today was the first time these soldiers had seen Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. But they were all very clear. As long as Di Zun was willing to help them, the injuries caused by the undead corpse puppets would definitely be healed. And the reason why Di Zun was willing to help? Just because of Yiqing Luo. Because of Di Zun's wife. Yiqing Luo looked at those soldiers behind her. The soldiers' eyes were filled with sincerity. After being infected by the undead corpse puppets, they could still hold on till here. And there were no signs of them going berserk. Chapter 31:45. As long as one's heart had no evil thoughts, no darkness, the corpse puppet's miasma would not be able to corrode one's heart. That way, he wouldn't be assimilated by the undead corpse puppets and become the undead corpse puppet's puppet. But the longer the miasma stayed in the body, even if they were not assimilated by the corpse puppets, they would be affected by the miasma and turn into a rotten corpse. The most important thing now was to purify the miasma in these soldiers' bodies. Yiqing Luo smiled at them. Have a good rest. After your bodies have recovered, there's a big battle waiting for you. Yes. Imperial Madam. The soldiers cupped their fists as they replied in unison. Yiqing Luo left the soldiers in the main hall to Dmo Xian to settle. She followed closely behind Tang Beiyuan as they walked into the room. Just as she closed the door, she heard Tang Beiyuan's chuckle, Imperial Madam. This title is indeed more suitable than the Imperial Palace's mistress. Yiqing Luo coughed lightly. Stop teasing me, let's talk about proper matters. Tang Beiyuan nodded. I know what you want to ask, but refining weapons, and under the circumstances where there's no conditions, refining more weapons is very difficult. Tang Beiyuan didn't beat around the bush. In 3 days, we've refined 48 weapons and that's already the limit. That's because we're in the Imperial Palace's armament refining hall and we don't lack any armament refining equipment. But we're in the South Continent now. Yiqing Luo's expression turned grave. I understand what you mean. No matter if it was refining weapons or pills. Other than the refining techniques, the external conditions were also very important. For example, the refining location, refining materials, etc. In a place like South Continent, the refining location wasn't considered good and the equipment wasn't complete. Even if Tang Beiyuan could refine weapons, she wouldn't be able to achieve the same efficiency and quality of weapons as when she was in the Imperial Palace. As an armament master, she would absolutely not allow herself to refine any flawed weapons. Especially for a armament sect, great armament master like Tang Beiyuan. Towards her own work, she would be even more meticulous. Moreover, Secluded Palace was obviously speeding up their invasion of the South Continent. It was absolutely impossible to give them more time to refine weapons. The Dark Palace will definitely continue to send corpse puppets to attack Valley Wind City. Yiqing Luo sighed softly. If I can refine a weapon that is able to contend against most of the dead corpses. Her hand lightly stroked the pattern imprinted on the azure dew bracelet on her wrist. In his heart, he sighed. If Old Man Song was here, he would definitely be able to give her a good idea, most of them. Tang Beiyuan murmured what Yiqing Luo said earlier and suddenly her eyes lit up as she clapped her hands. Why didn't I think of that? You have a weapon that can fight against most undead puppets. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Me. Tang Beiyuan put her hand on her shoulder excitedly. The glowing fan. Your gourd flame fan was refined from your heart's blood and bones. This gourd flame fan also contains your power. As long as you extract a portion of the mental energy used to fight against the undead puppets and fuse it with the ghastly flame fan, your ghastly flame fan will be much stronger than the weapons we forged in the Imperial Palace. To refine an excellent weapon and then fuse it with the Serenian's mental energy, it required a lot of time. Chapter 3146. Of course, if it was an ordinary weapon, he could only start from the beginning of the refinement, step by step, to extract the Netherine spiritual energy and fuse it with the Netherine spiritual energy. But the devouring flame fan was different. The glower flame fan was not only refined from Yiqing Luo's heart, bone and blood. The ghastly flame fan was also a weapon that could grow in quality. It was a spiritual power that could completely fuse with the Netherworld Palace. In this way, Yiqing Luo would be able to use the glower flame fan to go against most of the undead puppets. Yiqing Luo muttered to herself for a moment and made up her mind. All right, then I'll have to trouble you to think of a way to merge the Serenian's mental power into the glower flame fan. Tang Beiyuan received the glower flame fan from Yiqing Luo. I'll get it done now. As she spoke, she took out some equipment from her spatial ring. Tang Beiyuan was fiddling with the equipment when she suddenly thought of something as she abruptly raised her head and looked at Yiqing Luo. That's right, Qing Luo, that smear of mental energy which had fused with the weapon, you really have no way to extract more? If the amount extracted is too little, it will be less effective against the undead puppets. For a weapon like the gourd flame fan that can grow, if I can extract a large amount of netherine mental energy and fuse it with it, the effect will definitely double. Yiqing Luo's finger on her wrist stiffened slightly. She lowered her eyes and fixed her gaze on the azure dew bracelet. This was what Tang Beiyuan had said. She had thought about it a long time ago. However, control over the azure dew bracelet. Until now, she still couldn't move freely. She still did not sense Old Man Song's existence. If Old Man Song was here, then Tang Beiyuan's idea would work. Temporarily I still can't find a way to extract a large amount of mental power. Yiqing Luo shook her head. Let me think of a way to try. He walked out of Tang Beiyuan's room. Yiqing Luo then walked towards the direction of the room which she stayed in last night. In the main hall, Dmo Xian was releasing his profound energy to help the soldiers purify the miasma within their bodies. The entire hall was silent. Yiqing Luo didn't make any noise to disturb him as she quietly returned to her room and quietly closed the door. She sat down on the bed. He slowly raised his wrist. On her fair and slender wrist, the circular pattern resembling the petals of a cherry blossom was clearly visible. Vaguely, there seemed to be a bright red light flowing between the patterns. Staring. Yiqing Luo's gaze suddenly went into a daze. There seemed to be a wisp of white smoke floating in front of her, looking at her with a benevolent smile. That dignified yet concerned voice reverberated in her ears. Little Luo. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as the tip of her nose suddenly turned sour. She unconsciously looked in the direction of the white smoke and extended her other hand. Her voice was choked with emotion. Old Man Song. Old Man Song, however, her sobbing voice came to an abrupt halt at this moment. She stretched out her hand, but missed. The white smoke in front of him turned into a gentle breeze and dissipated. Old Song. Yiqing Luo cried out again. He raised his hands and tried desperately to touch the space in front of him. However, the only thing his hands could touch was air. She froze on the spot. He stared blankly for a long time before coming back to his senses. Am I hallucinating again? Yes. If it wasn't a hallucination, how could Old Man Song's spiritual body dissipate with just a touch? Yiqing Luo's tensed-up emotions, at this instance, were all unloaded. She really missed Old Man Song. Chapter 3147. Yiqing Luo's arm drooped down powerlessly. Her slender fingers, little by little, unconsciously stroked the decorative design of the azure dew bracelet. In his mind, he recalled the time when he was in the Miao tribe. She was determined to terminate the contract with Old Man Song and hand him over to Dmo Xian. There was a place in his heart that felt like it had been ruthlessly pierced by a needle. Ding! Suddenly, he felt a scorching heat on his wrist. Yiqing Luo's fingers trembled as she looked down. The pattern on the wristband was like water ripples, and layers upon layers of ripples began to appear. As the cherry blossom patterns floated, the scorching heat was also increasing. This change in the azure dew bracelet. This made Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly lit up. Old Man Song. Yiqing Luo sat up straight and her fingers once again covered the flowing pattern. As soon as he finished speaking, Yiqing Luo only felt a flash of white light in front of her and she felt blinded for a moment. The next moment, the place in front of him was already extremely familiar. It was the inside of the azure dew bracelet. Her divine sense entered the interior of the azure dew bracelet once more. Yiqing Luo couldn't suppress the excitement in her heart as she took a few quick steps forward. She looked around at the vast expanse of whiteness, searching for the figure she was looking for. Old Song. It's you, you're back, aren't you? Her voice echoed within the azure dew bracelet. However, there was no response at all. Furthermore, in all of the places that Old Man Song liked to hang out in, he was nowhere to be seen. The inside of the azure dew bracelet was empty, except for her. There was nothing else. No other creature. There was no aura of Old Man Song. She couldn't sense Old Song's aura within the azure dew bracelet. Since it wasn't you who returned, then why was I able to enter the azure dew bracelet again? Yiqing Luo's pink lips trembled slightly as she faintly spoke in a low voice. She lifted her wrist again. He stared at the floating patterns that seemed to be alive. She couldn't help but laugh, extremely bitter. Could it be that you want me to learn how to control the azure dew bracelet myself? Answer her. There were still only echoes from all four directions. Yiqing Luo slowly closed her eyes as her body fell backwards. Her slender back was pressed tightly against the cold ground. He slowly raised his right hand and placed it on his head. But Old Man Enrich, I'd rather you personally teach me how to control the azure dew bracelet. You're my only senior in this strange world, she sighed faintly. The flowing cherry blossom patterns blocked her eyes. As the bewitching red light flowed, it was as if they were about to seep into her eyes. Yiqing Luo felt a stinging pain in her eyes. She closed her eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he was met with a pair of eyes that were as large as copper bells. Eyes? Two huge, golden eyes. What is this? Yiqing Luo abruptly flipped herself up from the ground, as she looked towards the direction of her eyes vigilantly. It's you. When Yiqing Luo saw that pair of eyes clearly, the expression on her face was filled with astonishment. In front of him was a huge cauldron. The bronze furnace. However, it was covered in a dazzling golden light. The pair of eyes she had just seen. It was the two golden eyes on the body of the cauldron. Yiqing Luo pointed at the cauldron in front of her. Cauldron dragon. So it's you. The inside of the azure dew bracelet should be an independent space. Apart from her surprise, there shouldn't be anyone who could appear in the azure dew bracelet's independent space. This cauldron in front of her. Chapter 3148. Yiqing Luo's face immediately lit up. She pounced forward and hugged the cauldron dragon. Cauldron dragon. You're still here. Yiqing Luo stretched out her arms, but could only hug a small totem of the cauldron dragon. The cauldron dragon's glittering golden eyes shifted. Then, a golden light flashed. The cauldron dragon's body had transformed into a height similar to Yiqing Luo's. Master, I've always been in the azure dew bracelet. Unless you summon me, I can't leave this place. The cauldron dragon's steady voice contained a trace of helplessness. So, in his master's eyes, within the azure dew bracelet, only Old Man Song. After Yiqing Luo met cauldron dragon's slightly resentful eyes, her hands hugged the cauldron even tighter. Every time I come to the azure dew bracelet, it seems like I've never heard you open your mouth. Right now I'm just excited. What kind of excitement? Cauldron dragon shot her a sidelong glance without giving her any face. Are you excited to see me, or are you excited for some other reason? Yiqing Luo gave an embarrassed smile, as her tone sounded slightly coquettish. Both. She paused and continued, ever since that battle with the Miao tribe, I had no way of entering the interior of the azure dew bracelet. I don't know why, but I suddenly came today. To be able to see you, cauldron dragon, within the azure dew bracelet, I'm definitely excited. She paused for a moment, then raised her head and looked into the pair of golden eyes. But, there are other reasons too. You want to know where Old Song is, right? Cauldron Dragon didn't beat around the bush with her. Yiqing Luo's hands immediately loosened, her eyes nervously looking at Cauldron Dragon. You know that old man Tsang knows where he is. The Cauldron Dragon was silent for a moment. Master, although I shouldn't criticize any of your decisions as your contracted furnace, there are still some words that I must say. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids and sighed softly. I know what you want to say. This time, you are indeed in the wrong. Cauldron Dragon's tone became solemn and respectful. The pair of golden eyes embedded in the cauldron also became unusually serious. The Azure Dew Bracelet is not only a divine artifact, it is also a home that belongs to us. Ever since you formed the blood contract with the Azure Dew Bracelet, we, who were in deep slumber within the Azure Dew Bracelet, also woke up. We followed you and experienced so much. To us, this is the same as you giving us a home. When you decided to abandon the Azure Dew Bracelet, when you decided to face death alone, you were also abandoning us, abandoning our family. When you made this decision, even I had a feeling of being abandoned and hurt. Don't even mention how much pain old man Tsang, who loved you as if you were his own granddaughter, felt in his heart. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she lowered her head. You don't need to apologize to me, said the Cauldron Dragon, interrupting her. The person you should apologize to is old man Tsang. Old man Tsang, he's still here. He's still here, right? Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her head, her eyes staring unblinkingly at Cauldron Dragon. Cauldron Dragon, tell me where he is. How should I see him? Cauldron Dragon looked deeply at her, not speaking for a long time. It was silent for a long time. Its pair of golden eyes slowly closed. Old man Tsang didn't allow me to tell you, but I believe that you should know these things. Chapter 3149. Cauldron Dragon's tone was heavy. Met with old man Tsang exhausting his own mental strength to forcefully stop the contract with you, Yiqing Luo's complexion faintly paled. Her slender fingers suddenly tightened. Her round fingernails deeply embedded themselves into her palm. Old man Tsang was a spirit body and could become the Azure Dew Bracelet's guardian spirit. What he relied on was mental strength. Her method of communication with old man Tsang was also through mental strength. Exhausting mental strength, to stop the contract from being dissolved. It was the same as burning her vitality to dissolve the blood contract. Yiqing Luo suddenly lifted her wrist. Her fingers trembled as they covered the decorative design that represented the Azure Dew Bracelet on her wrist. Cherry blossom petals floated on her fingertips like flowing clouds. The tip of her nose suddenly turned sour. Cauldron Dragon, so, after I woke up, the Azure Dew Bracelet didn't dissolve the contract with me because of this reason. Old man Tsang, who had exhausted all of his mental strength, he would completely disappear from this world. Even his soul wouldn't exist anymore. Therefore, the current conclusion was, the Azure Dew Bracelet still maintained the contract relationship with her. And old man Tsang was already gone. After these words were spat out from her mouth with great difficulty, Yiqing Luo practically exhausted all the strength in her body. The intense sourness irritated her eyes. Her fists clenched even tighter as she forcefully endured. His eyes and the tip of his nose were all red. Cauldron Dragon looked at Yiqing Luo, who seemed like she wanted to cry, and immediately said, "Of course not." A glimmer of hope flashed in Yiqing Luo's eyes. Cauldron Dragon said, "Although old man Tsang exhausted his mental strength, he is still in the Azure Dew Bracelet. Then, I am unable to sense his existence now because his mental strength is insufficient." Yiqing Luo opened her mouth with great difficulty, her voice extremely dull and hoarse. "This is also one of the reasons." Cauldron Dragon said. "What other reasons?" Yiqing Luo's hope rose as she eagerly asked. Cauldron Dragon hesitated for a moment as if hesitating whether to say it or not. Yiqing Luo's heart was already endlessly anxious. Her slender brows knitted into a ball as she single-handedly supported the cauldron body. What other reasons are there? What happened to Old Man Tsang? Cauldron Dragon glanced at her. In the end, he seemed to have decided on something. He let out a long sigh. In the process of Old Man Tsang consuming his mental force, he was stopped by an accident. Old Man Tsang's attempt to stop the dissolution of the contract was also stopped. Accident. Yiqing Luo's hand trembled, and immediately hope was ignited. Then where is Old Man Tsang? How can I sense his existence? Yes, an accident. Cauldron Dragon only emphasized the word accident. He didn't have any intention of elaborating. Although this accident prevented Old Man Tsang from harming himself, Old Man Tsang's action of exhausting his mental strength really did happen. His spiritual body was affected. In addition to this accident, if you want to see him again, perhaps, it will be a bit difficult. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly. Her pale lips were stained with a trace of blood. What can I do for him? Cauldron Dragon didn't reply. He used his pair of golden eyes to stare at her for a good while before asking in reply, Master, is it because you want Old Man Tsang to awaken because you need him to teach you how to freely extract the netherine mental strength, or because you're worried about him? Yiqing Luo's slender brows immediately knitted together. Chapter 3150. Light surged within Yiqing Luo's charming eyes. Her slender fingers were tightly clenched into a fist, tightly clenched. Cauldron Dragon's questioning. It was like a ruthless slap on her face. Indeed. Cauldron Dragon didn't doubt her character from the bottom of his heart. But Cauldron Dragon needed to hear her answer personally. This already showed that Cauldron Dragon's trust towards her already had a gap. She didn't blame Cauldron Dragon. If it was her gap would perhaps be even greater than Cauldron Dragon's. After all, this time, she had indeed gone too far. Especially when she heard that Old Man Tsang's soul had almost flown away and scattered because of her decision, she became increasingly aware of her own selfishness and excesses. Wholeheartedly, she only thought about her own love and Xian. But she had neglected, she couldn't leave Xian and couldn't bear the days without him. Then, those people who cared about her and valued her. How could they leave her, how could they bear the days without her? This was her fault. She indeed deserved the punishment of being distrusted like this. Gradually, Yiqing Luo's delicate body went limp. Her taut muscles and slender fingers were powerlessly hanging at her side. She raised her head again. Her reddened eyes met Cauldron Dragon's golden pupils without blinking. She opened her mouth. Old Man Tsang is not only my master, he is also my kin, my family. I want him to return to my side, because I need him as a family member. Cauldron Dragon's solemn eyes finally softened a bit. Old Man Tsang's spirit body is fine. It finally relented. Yiqing Luo's heart didn't relax because of this. She tightly pursed her lips and asked worriedly, Spirit body is fine. Then why can't I see him in the azure dew bracelet? Just as she finished asking her question, a voice suddenly rang out. Without waiting for Cauldron Dragon's reply, she anxiously continued to ask, Spirit body is fine, then is his mental power greatly damaged? Is he in any danger? Yiqing Luo continued to ask, earlier you said, Old Man Tsang has awakened. In other words, Old Man Tsang is currently in a state of deep slumber. Then, stop. Cauldron Dragon was somewhat stupefied by Yiqing Luo's question without even panting. He raised his voice. Now, listen to me. Yiqing Luo immediately shut her mouth as she fixed her eyes on it. Cauldron Dragon said, I am unable to say much about Old Man Song's current situation. Right now, he was indeed in a deep slumber. As for when he will wake up, that will depend on his willpower and heaven's will. Willpower. Heaven's will. What does this mean? Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. Although that accident stopped Old Man Song, to Old Man Song, it also caused a great impact. Cauldron Dragon said vaguely. You don't need to worry. At present, it's hard to say whether this impact is good or bad. Yiqing Luo knew that Cauldron Dragon didn't want to tell her the details of that day. She did not intend to pursue the matter. However, were the Cauldron Dragon's words just a guess, or were they just lies to make her feel at ease? Master, no matter how much you think about Old Man Song's situation, it's of no use. Cauldron Dragon saw that Yiqing Luo didn't speak for a long time, so he continued, Today, Master didn't need to connect with Old Man Song's mental power to enter the Azure Dew bracelet. This is already a very good omen. Chapter 3151. Old Man Song is the Azure Dew bracelet's guardian. Your mental strength is connected to him. In the past, you entered the Azure Dew bracelet through fusing with Old Man Song's mental strength magnetic field. Cauldron Dragon explained. Yiqing Luo looked at the Azure Dew bracelet pattern on her wrist in astonishment. These days, she had been unable to enter the Azure Dew bracelet. She was also unable to form a connection with the Azure Dew bracelet. Was it because the magnetic field connection between her and Old Man Song was broken? Then, she suddenly entered the Azure Dew bracelet today. What was the reason? Her and Old Man Song's magnetic field connection was re-established. We have no way of knowing the reason at the moment. Cauldron Dragon said, however, this is at least a good start. This also shows that Old Man Song's consciousness is very likely slowly recovering. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes slowly surveyed the surroundings. Her slender fingers lightly stroked her wrist. It was as if she was recalling all the scenes of Old Man Song being here through this vast expanse of whiteness. Cauldron Dragon didn't make a sound to disturb her. After a long time, Yiqing Luo closed her eyes. The expression on her face also gradually recovered its tranquility. When she opened her eyes again, the surging emotions in her eyes had also dissipated, and she had calmed down. I understand. Yiqing Luo's gaze returned to Cauldron Dragon. I will wait for Old Man Song to return. If there is anything I can help with, please tell me. I also want to do something for him. Cauldron Dragon's golden eyes blinked. It seemed to be somewhat astonished at Yiqing Luo's calmness. It looked at Yiqing Luo face to face for a long time before opening its mouth. If Master can truly be at ease and work hard to increase her strength, this will be the greatest help to him. I'll remember. Yiqing Luo nodded. Cauldron Dragon still wanted to say something, but a golden light flashed in the depths of its eyes. In the end, it still didn't say anything. One person and one cauldron sunk into silence. 4 eyes met. After a moment of silence, Yiqing Luo was the first to break the silence. I'll leave first. Cauldron Dragon, and Yiqing Luo turned around and walked a few steps towards the vast expanse of whiteness before pausing. If Old Man Song has any news, no matter if it's good or bad, please tell me. Cauldron Dragon was silent for a moment. All right. Yiqing Luo curled her lips towards Cauldron Dragon, revealing a faint smile. She turned around again. But very quickly, she turned back. Beneath the hazy white mist, a pair of eyes that were as resplendent as stars gazed at the Cauldron Dragon like torches. Cauldron Dragon's golden eyes contained a trace of unconcealable panic. The fleeting panic fell into Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly. She knew that Cauldron Dragon was definitely hiding something from her. This matter, it must also be related to Old Man Song. It was just that Cauldron Dragon wasn't willing to say. Even if she interrogated him, there would be no results. She could only pretend that she didn't sense the Cauldron Dragon's abnormality. Is there anything else? Cauldron Dragon's calm voice resounded. It was also because of his guilty conscience. Cauldron Dragon's voice sounded especially dignified as a member of the Dragon Clan. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles as her face revealed a gentle smile. She looked at the Cauldron Dragon and said word by word, whether it's Old Man Song, you, or the Purgatory Pagoda, everything within this Azure Dew bracelet is my home, all of you are my family. Cauldron Dragon's golden pupils suddenly constricted. Chapter 3152. Cauldron Dragon's golden pupils flickered and shrank again. It wanted to speak. However, when he looked into the young girl's eyes, which were shining with brilliance, it couldn't make the slightest sound. Just like that, it locked eyes with the young girl. After a long while, the young girl withdrew her gaze and stepped into the boundless whiteness. That blazing figure. Within the white fog, it was faintly discernible. Until that figure completely disappeared within the Azure Dew bracelet. Cauldron Dragon's widened golden pupils faintly fluctuated for a moment. Golden light flickered. The cauldron body once again transformed into an enormous dragon cauldron. I'll have to trouble you, Cauldron Dragon. A gentle and graceful voice was especially clear in this silent space. Hearing this voice, Cauldron Dragon's gaze suddenly became respectful. Is it really okay to tell her about Old Man Song? That graceful voice was ethereal and faintly discernible. You can't always let her act recklessly. You should let her understand that after she acts recklessly, someone will bear the consequences for her. Although the words were filled with reproach towards Yiqing Luo, but one could clearly hear the amiability in the tone. Cauldron Dragon's golden pupils drooped, as if recalling Yiqing Luo's final smile when she looked at it. It sighed softly, come to think of it, that girl should have already understood this. The air was silent. Cauldron Dragon asked again, then, Old Man Song can he still wake up? Yes. The graceful voice seemed to blend into the air, light and faintly discernible. If one didn't listen carefully, they wouldn't be able to hear this voice. Old Man Song will wake up, but everything depends on fate. Depends on the fate between Old Man Song and Luo, Yiqing Luo opened her eyes. She was still in the room where she rested last night. In her mind, she recalled what Cauldron Dragon had just said. She lifted her wrist and lightly stroked the Azure Dew bracelet. Old Man Song, I will definitely let you wake up. The things I promised you, I will absolutely not break my word. She softly murmured, the light in her eyes becoming increasingly resolute. She looked at the time. She had actually already stayed in the Azure Dew bracelet for nearly 2 hours. Yiqing Luo walked out of the room, preparing to take a look at Dmo Xian and those soldiers who were infected by the miasma. But, standing at the railing of the second floor, Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings but didn't see Dmo Xian's figure at all. The injured soldiers were also bandaged and laid on the ground covered with straw to rest. Where is Xian? Yiqing Luo's figure leapt up and directly leapt from the railing to the first floor. Her appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. Lady Knight, no, I should call her Lady Emperor. The soldiers immediately greeted him respectfully. How are your bodies feeling? Yiqing Luo smiled at them. The soldiers were grateful. Thank you for your concern. The Overlord has cleared the miasma from our bodies. As long as we rest for a while, we can go into battle again. Yiqing Luo's vision swept past everyone's faces. The black aura between their eyebrows had indeed completely dissipated. She curled her lips and said warmly, "There's no hurry to go into battle and kill the enemy. The external injuries on your bodies need to rest for at least half a month's time." The smiles on the soldiers' faces stiffened and immediately became resolute. "The injuries on our bodies are not a hindrance." Chapter 31:53. The soldiers froze. Yiqing Luo continued to smile, but her tone revealed a calm and unruffled boldness. The main hall fell into silence. Yiqing Luo's voice slowed down but was sonorous. "Ah, Xian can save you once, but it doesn't mean that he will save you a second time. So if you want to protect your own continent, then let yourself recover quickly and not try to show off and drag your own brother down." The soldiers were all tensed up as they clenched their fists tightly. They looked deeply at Yiqing Luo's direction. The expressions on their faces were changing bit by bit. Towards Yiqing Luo's words, they had no way to refute. Yiqing Luo didn't continue saying anything as she walked out of the inn directly. Outside the inn, it was a mess. The entire place was in ruins and smoke filled the air. It was totally different from the Valley Wind City that she had seen in her memory. She raised her eyes as she looked at the city wall not too far away. The great general and those soldiers who were standing upright were guarding the city vigilantly. This was the last city in the South Waves continent. The people from the secluded palace would attack any time. If Valley Wind City was attacked, the South Waves continent would completely become a subsidiary force of the secluded palace. The secluded palace's plan would then advance a step further. "Qing Luo." A lady's soft voice was heard from behind. Yiqing Luo turned around and saw Tang Beiyuan, who was dressed in a blue long dress, walking over. Tang Beiyuan said, "The Imperial Palace's disciples have found the secret base which the secluded palace had stationed in the South Waves continent. The Overlord has brought some men over to scout." "Secret base?" Yiqing Luo was stunned. Surely this isn't a scheme of the secluded palace. According to a reliable source, it shouldn't be. Tang Beiyuan shook her head. "The Overlord will head over personally, so it shouldn't be fake." "Where is it?" "I'll go over now." Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as she asked anxiously. "The Overlord had specially instructed you to stay here and wait for him to return." Tang Beiyuan pulled Yiqing Luo's wrist. "The Overlord will not let anything happen to himself, don't worry." Although she had 100% confidence in Dmo Xian's ability, but it was absolutely impossible to say that she wasn't worried. Tang Beiyuan naturally saw the worry on Yiqing Luo's face as she walked to Yiqing Luo's side and stood still. Following that, he and Yiqing Luo looked towards the direction of the city walls. "To be honest, I'm very envious of your relationship with the Dizun." An envious smile appeared on Tang Beiyuan's beautiful face. She glanced sideways slightly as she gazed at Yiqing Luo's side profile. The current Lord Dizun has really changed a lot. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that this is the same Lord Dizun. Beiyuan, Yiqing Luo could hear the envy in Tang Beiyuan's tone, as well as that undetectable sorrow. She recalled what Dmo Xian had told her about Tang Beiyuan's fiancé. He had been in the Imperial Palace for so long. Yiqing Luo had never seen Tang Beiyuan's fiancé before, not knowing what he looked like. Tang Beiyuan smiled bitterly. She raised her hand and pressed it against her chest as she continued to speak word by word. "In the hearts of the women of the Imperial Palace, Qin Wendian, Dizun was like a high and mighty god. No matter who it was, they were just a speck of dust in front of Dizun. But, you're different. Dmo Xian's gentleness towards you, that attitude where you're held in the palm of your hand, afraid that you'll fall, or in the mouth, afraid that you'll melt, has gradually made Dmo Xian become more and more popular. I've heard many people ridiculing that Dmo Xian is cold and emotionless, a person without feelings. Chapter 3154. Tang Beiyuan's tone became increasingly bitter. That bitter taste. Even if he tried his best to hide it, he could clearly feel it. Actually, it's not that he's cold and heartless, it's not that he doesn't have feelings. It's just that the only person he warms is you. Tang Beiyuan could not help but laugh. Her eyes were filled with a sense of loss. He has given all his love to you. He only has eyes and heart for you. Beiyuan, Yiqing Luo held Tang Beiyuan's hand. Her hand was cold. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she placed one hand on her shoulder. You and your fiancé, what's the matter? Tang Beiyuan's words sounded very strange. If others were to hear this, they might have thought that Tang Beiyuan was deeply in love with Dmo Xian, and seeing Dmo Xian loving Yiqing Luo made her feel jealous, etc. But Yiqing Luo was very clear. Even if she had never met Tang Beiyuan's fiancé, she was very clear about everything. Tang Beiyuan's deep love for that man. Why would Tang Beiyuan show such an envious and bitter expression? Apart from that fiancé, Yiqing Luo could not think of anyone else. Tang Beiyuan slowly raised her head. Her eyes were red from holding back her tears as she stared fixedly at her. After a while, Tang Beiyuan said in a hoarse voice, "Do you know why I followed you to the South Wave continent?" Yiqing Luo looked at her silently, waiting for her next words. Tang Beiyuan closed her eyes. He was injured in the last mission, and I didn't want him to risk his life on the South Wave continent, so I came. Yiqing Luo rubbed her head. For your fiancé's Beijing, you're very brave. Yes, but he will never be able to see my bravery. Tang Beiyuan forced a smile and snorted softly. Perhaps I'm not the one who knows how to warm him. Yiqing Luo heard the exhaustion in her tone as she gently pulled her into her arms and patted her back. Don't let your imagination run wild. Tang Beiyuan, who was in Yiqing Luo's arms, didn't say a word for a long time. But Yiqing Luo could feel that the sorrowful loneliness from the lady was extremely thick. It seemed that after everything was over, she had to find a chance. He wanted to see Tang Beiyuan's fiancé. Only when she saw that man could she be sure that Tang Beiyuan would be happy with him. Yiqing Luo gently patted the person in her arms. After a while, Tang Beiyuan suddenly looked up. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at her with a smile. Now, do you still want to look for His Majesty? There was no trace of loneliness or sorrow in her beautiful eyes that were filled with smiles. It was as if the bitterness from before was just a facade. Yiqing Luo was stunned and was about to open her mouth. Tang Beiyuan grabbed her hand and winked mischievously. If you still want to look for the Dizun, you'll be provoking me. I'm all alone and I don't have a fiancé by my side to love me. His tone was full of grievance. Yiqing Luo, she stared at Tang Beiyuan's face for a long time before she held her forehead and said, just now, were you trying to divert my attention? In order to prevent her from finding Dmo Xian. So you purposely put on a bitter drama. Tang Beiyuan's eyelashes fanned as she looked at her innocently. No, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. I'm really envious of you guys, very envious. As she said that, she stuck out her tongue mischievously at her. Following that, she turned around and jogged towards the direction of the inn. Chapter 3155. The more Tang Beiyuan said so, the more he thought about it, the more it proved that she was indeed trying to stop him from going to look for Dmo Xian, and intentionally put on a bitter drama. But others couldn't tell. There was no way she couldn't tell. Tang Beiyuan's words and emotions came from the bottom of her heart. Just so she wouldn't worry. As for the deliberate act, it was just a pitiful play. This lass, sometimes, it really made one's heart ache. From the looks of it, Tang Beiyuan's fiancé, indeed, she had to find an opportunity to go and have a look. After Tang Beiyuan's antics, Yiqing Luo had indeed dismissed the idea of looking for Dmo Xian. She glanced in Tang Beiyuan's direction before walking towards the city gates. Beiyuan didn't want her to worry. She would pretend that she didn't know anything. At this moment, Beiyuan also wanted to be alone for a while. Yiqing Luo's feet had just lifted up. Soon after, he heard a soft chuckle coming from not far away. Yiqing Luo frowned as she looked towards the direction of the laughter alertly. In the messy street stood a figure wrapped in a black robe. Even his head was covered with a black veil, making it impossible to see his face clearly. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. When did this person appear? How could she not sense the existence of this person? Her perception couldn't sense this person. Miss Yi, you're really naive. The black-robed and black-veiled figure laughed softly. Her tone was full of ridicule. The sound was ear-piercing, like the sound of two sharp objects colliding and rubbing against each other. Yiqing Luo dug her ears and frowned slightly. Who are you? Judging from this person's stature, Yiqing Luo's initial judgment was that the person under the black robe should be a lady. It was just that the voice was so unpleasant that it was hard to distinguish. Ha! The black-robed man chuckled again, just a little commoner who was saved by the soldiers of Valley Wind City. Commoners. Yiqing Luo stared at the black-robed man. She could not sense any trace of profound energy from the black-robed man's body. Indeed, he looked like an ordinary person. But Yiqing Luo didn't believe it. A commoner was able to avoid her senses. How could a commoner be so calm and composed in front of her? Just as Yiqing Luo was in deep thoughts, suddenly, he heard a hoarse and anxious voice. Little Feng. Xiao Feng. Not good, not good. Granny Wang is foaming again. An old man rushed out of an abandoned mansion not far away. The soldiers at the door immediately supported the staggering old man. When the old man saw the black-robed man, his face was full of excitement. Little Feng, quick. Come here. The black-robed man took a look at that old man and looked at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo seemed to have heard the black-robed man's chuckle. Then, the black-robed man's sharp and unpleasant voice rang out. I still wanted to be friends with Lady Yi and have a good chat. It seems like I can only postpone it. With that, the black-robed man turned around and walked toward the old man. The old man looked at the black-robed man with hope in his eyes. Xiao Feng, only you can save old woman Wang. You must save her. The two of them walked side by side into that abandoned mansion. Yiqing Luo stared at their departing figures as she frowned slightly. That mansion was Valley Wind City's safety zone. Those commoners who were still alive were arranged in the safety zone, waiting for rescue. That black-robed man earlier. Chapter 3156. From the attitude of the soldiers and that shabbily dressed old man towards that black-robed man. That black-robed man should have stayed in the safety zone for a long period of time. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Staring at the direction of the safety zone, she pondered for a moment. She lifted her feet and walked towards the safety zone. The soldiers guarding at the entrance naturally recognized Yiqing Luo. It could be said that in the entire Valley Wind City, there was no one who didn't recognize Yiqing Luo and her bunch of brothers in the world group. The soldier revealed a joyous expression. Imperial Madam, you're going to the safety zone to take a look. I'll lead the way for you. Yiqing Luo waved her hand as her gaze passed through the open door and looked into the huge mansion. From this glance, there were at least 200 to 300 people in the huge mansion. Men and women were all huddled together. Yiqing Luo's gaze looked in and coincidentally saw a corner of the huge mansion which was filled with people. The black-robed man's back was facing her direction. There were quite a number of people who kept rushing towards that direction. Is Imperial Madam looking at Miss Xiaofeng? The soldier saw Yiqing Luo staring at that direction and hurriedly opened his mouth to chat. Yiqing Luo nodded slightly. She's called Xiaofeng. That's right. The soldier also looked over and his tone was filled with admiration and admiration. Miss Xiaofeng and Imperial Madam are the same, both are kind-hearted people. Kind-hearted. Earlier this young lady called Xiaofeng. When she was facing her. That tone didn't seem like a kind-hearted person. Ever since Miss Xiaofeng was picked up from outside the city by the Grand General, our casualties have reduced by a lot. The soldier continued, Miss Xiaofeng is an outstanding doctor and the commoners in the safety zone have all received her grace. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly. From the sound of it, she indeed sounded like a kind-hearted person. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly. I'll go in to take a look. The soldier naturally wouldn't stop her. Yiqing Luo walked directly towards the direction where the crowd was surrounding. Imperial Madam, this safety zone is dirty. If those commoners touch Imperial Madam, That soldier saw Yiqing Luo walking towards a crowded place as he called out softly behind her. In this safe zone, it was already good enough for the civilians to survive and fill their stomachs. Before the end of the war, they would not be able to take a bath or change their clothes. Each and every one of the commoners was dirty and messy. One could smell the stench on their bodies even without looking at them. Yiqing Luo was a priceless treasure. The soldier's words didn't stop Yiqing Luo. They could only watch as Yiqing Luo squeezed into the crowd. The people were crowded and bustling. The dust on his body had more or less landed on Yiqing Luo. Fortunately, Yiqing Luo didn't mind. The soldiers heaved a sigh of relief, but their eyes were still concentrated on Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo squeezed into the crowd. His gaze was attracted by Xiao Feng's figure. An old granny dressed in coarse clothes lay on the ground surrounded by the crowd. Her entire body was dirty and messy, and she was twitching in pain. The old lady's mouth was still spitting white foam. Xiao Feng squatted beside the old lady, one hand on the old lady's wrist and the other on her heart. Old Madam Wang, can you hear me? Xiao Feng asked. His voice was still the same as the sound of sharp weapons clashing, but it was obviously much softer. It was totally different from the ridicule when facing her. This Xiao Feng. Chapter 3157. Xiao Feng asked a few more questions. Granny Wang didn't respond. Her body was twitching more and more violently. Xiao Feng immediately increased the strength of his palm and pressed hard on old woman Wang's chest. His other hand reached for old maidservant Wang's chin and held it firmly. Old maid Wang's body convulsed violently. Then, like a fish that had lost its water, it went limp. However, he had also stopped convulsing. Seeing this, the onlookers heaved a sigh of relief. Miss Feng, it's all thanks to you. Fortunately, you're here. Old maid Wang is fine. Miss Lin Feng, go and rest. Leave this place to us. The commoners looked at Xiao Feng with gratitude in their eyes. He completely regarded Feng as a living bodhisattva. Xiao Feng didn't say anything. Instead, he placed his hand on old maid Wang's chest. Then, he used his other hand to clean the white bubbles on old maid Wang's mouth, not caring about her sloppiness. This action once again made the commoners feel grateful. Among the crowd, Yiqing Luo's slender brows did not relax for a long time. Xiao Feng did look like a doctor who practiced medicine to save the world. Judging from her actions and her attitude towards old maidservant Wang, there were no other emotions in his body. There was not a single mistake to be found. After dealing with old maid Wang, Xiao Feng stood up. The commoners at the side immediately handed over a clean handkerchief. Xiao Feng wiped his hands and stood up. Grandma Wang is fine now. The surrounding commoners once again expressed their gratitude and praise. Xiao Feng was about to leave the crowd. When he raised his head, he saw Yiqing Luo who was standing in the crowd. Their eyes met through the black veil. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that Xiao Feng seemed to have smiled. Then, he followed the crowd and headed in another direction. It was a corner under the eaves. This corner was surrounded by sheds. There was a wooden table and a wooden chair inside. At the side, there was a bed that could fit a person, with a gauze curtain hanging over it. In this destitute and impoverished safety zone, this kind of place could definitely be considered as the best. Xiao Feng walked over and sat on the wooden chair. Countless commoners immediately rushed forward. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes slightly. She was sure that Xiao Feng had seen her just now. Just now outside the mansion. Xiao Feng obviously had something to say to her. Now that he saw her, he was pretending to be mysterious. This woman called Xiao Feng. What was her objective? Just as Yiqing Luo was staring at Little Wind's direction, an old voice came from behind her. Beautiful young lady, are you new here? Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and saw the old man who ran outside the mansion earlier, calling Xiao Feng to save old maid Wang, looking at her with a smiling face. The old man didn't wait for Yiqing Luo's reply as he continued on his own. How pitiful, so pretty, you must be some family's missy. It's all right, it's all right. The people here are all good people. Saying that, she stretched out her hand and pulled Yiqing Luo's wrist. Let's go, I'll bring you to find a place to rest. Although this place is a little shabby, at least we can survive. In the face of survival, some dirt and mess can be tolerated. Yiqing Luo was directly dragged by the old man to another corner of the mansion. This corner was rather damp, and the ground was covered with layers of straw. There were also a few young girls sewing and patching at the side. Chapter 3158. This is a newcomer, please take care of her. The old man smiled as he instructed and squeezed towards Little Feng's direction. Looking at the old man's back, Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. The young lady sitting on one side got up and pulled Yiqing Luo to sit down. Don't be sad, it's not bad that we can survive. Actually, it's good to stay here, there's food and drink and we just have to do some small things every day, it's not bitter. The young lady on the other side pushed the old sewing equipment over. That old lady is our steward here, we all call her Mistress Yang, in future we will have to rely on her for our food and drink. Seeing that Yiqing Luo was still staring at the direction of the old man and Little Feng, the other young ladies also understood, although we are all refugees, but if we want to have a good life in the safety zone, it all depends on our own ability. Miss Little Feng's ability is strong and can save people, we can't be envious. Basically, every young lady who just came would be envious of Little Feng. Mentioning Little Feng, Yiqing Luo smiled. It seems, you all respect Miss Little Feng. That's natural. The young ladies nodded hard. Our lives are all saved by Miss Little Feng. Yiqing Luo took the opportunity to ask, why did she wrap herself in the black robe? Have you seen her face? The young lady's smile froze. The few young ladies stared at Yiqing Luo for a long time. One of the young ladies pulled her hand and whispered, you can't say this sentence again, if others hear it, they will chase you out of the safety zone. It could be seen that in the hearts of this group of people, Little Feng occupied an extraordinary position. Miss Little Feng because of the battle in the southern continent, her face was scratched by the magical beasts, her entire face was ruined, so she covered her face with the black veil. The young lady leaned close to Yi Qing Luo's ear and whispered, "In the safety zone, you must not mention anything about Miss Little Feng's face." Yi Qing Luo nodded thoughtfully. Disfigured by magical beasts. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and stared at Little Feng's direction with interest. It seemed like she wanted to see Little Feng's face through the black veil. The little girl hurriedly tugged at her, "Don't look. If you make Miss Xiaofeng unhappy, maidservant Yang won't give you lunch." "Thank you for your reminder." Yi Qing Luo smiled at the young lady and immediately stood up. The little girl asked anxiously, "Where are you going?" "Don't wander around. There are many places in the safe zone that have been sprinkled with Miss Xiaofeng's special medicinal powder to expel the poisonous insects. If you come into contact with it, you'll be in trouble." Yi Qing Luo smiled again and without any hesitation, she left this secluded corner. After a series of understanding, Yi Qing Luo could tell as well Xiaofeng's position in the safe zone. He also knew that this group of people regarded Feng as a god in their hearts. In other words, they were Xiaofeng's die-hard fans. Even if the monarch came in person, he might not be able to win the hearts of the people like Xiao Feng. However, she still couldn't believe it. This Xiaofeng was just as everyone had described, kind-hearted. He had to admit it. This Xiaofeng's methods were indeed impressive. Yi Qing Luo retracted her vision and walked towards the main door. Coincidentally, she bumped into maidservant Yang who was walking towards her. Yi Qing Luo's beauty could topple a city, anyone could remember her. Chapter 3159. Yi Qing Luo casted a glance at her but didn't bother about her. She walked past matron Yang and prepared to leave. Maidservant Yang's old face instantly turned ugly. "Little girl. Didn't you hear what I said?" As matron Yang said that, she took a big step forward and blocked Yi Qing Luo's way once again. "What's the matter?" Yi Qing Luo frowned as she asked calmly. Ever since she followed beside Miss Xiao Feng in the entire safety zone, who didn't smile at her, matron Yang? Even the soldiers from Gu Feng's sect had to address her as matron Yang when they saw her. Since when did anyone dare to show her such attitude? Matron Yang's face sunk. "Young lady, this isn't like your home, it's not a place for you to throw a tantrum. I pitied you so I arranged you to the most relaxed place, don't be ungrateful." Matron Yang's voice was very loud. Moreover, in the safety zone, she was someone whom everyone knew. Hearing matron Yang's voice, the rest of the commoners' gazes all turned over. With the commoners backing her up, matron Yang's back straightened even more. "I advise you, you'd better listen obediently, otherwise I'll reward you to those soldiers and let you be their prostitute." Matron Yang's words were getting uglier and uglier. Yi Qing Luo originally didn't mind matron Yang's obstruction. To her, matron Yang was just an ordinary commoner. But matron Yang just had to provoke her. Don't blame her for not giving any face. Stare. What are you staring at for? A down-and-out young missy still has the cheek to throw a tantrum. Matron Yang felt goosebumps from Yi Qing Luo's stare. Matron Yang straightened her neck as she kept on scolding her. Paw. The crisp sound of a slap interrupted the clamor in the mansion. It also stopped matron Yang's scolding. Matron Yang regained her senses from the pain as she suddenly raised her hand and covered her face. You dare to hit me. Matron Yang didn't see the young lady in front of her making a move, but the burning pain on her face was extremely obvious. Even opening her mouth to speak, her muscles were in so much pain that she sucked in a breath of cold air. Yiqing Luo indifferently glanced at the palm print on maidservant Yang's face as her voice was chilly. You indeed deserve a beating. You. Grandma Yang was furious. Good. Are you kidding me? If I don't kill you today, I won't be called Old Woman Yang. She howled and pounced towards Yiqing Luo. But, this pounce, before he even got close to the girl. Old Maid Yang felt her vision blur. He stumbled and fell heavily on the ground, face down. She fell all over her body, and her bones were aching. While howling and crying in pain, he rolled on the ground again and again. She looked exactly like a shrew. Yiqing Luo was just 5 steps away from maidservant Yang, as she stood with her arms crossed. Her beautiful face was devoid of any emotion. Her eyes were cold and calm, and no one could tell what she was thinking. She disdained to fight with ordinary people. He was not interested in making a move against an old man. That slap wasn't from her. Of course, she didn't detect where the energy from that slap came from. Looking at the hysterical appearance of old maid Yang in front of him, Yiqing Luo instinctively raised her eyes and looked past the crowd, towards the black-robed lady who was standing by her wooden table. 2 pairs of eyes seemed to meet. Yiqing Luo once again sensed that the lady's black robe revealed a smile. That smile seemed to be ridiculing her. Chapter 3160. Somehow they felt that earlier slap. It had something to do with the black-robed lady who was addressed as Xiao Feng. But currently, everyone seemed to have confirmed it. That Madame Yang would fall onto the ground crying out in pain. This was what Yiqing Luo had done. Just as Yiqing Luo and Xiao Feng were exchanging glances, the surrounding commoners hurriedly helped Madame Yang up as they berated Yiqing Luo. What's wrong with you, young lady? You look so good, but your heart is so vicious, not even letting an elderly off. If anything happens to Madame Yang, don't even think of staying in this safety zone. Quick! Stop her, don't let her escape. The commoners started to flock forward, as they surrounded Yiqing Luo in the middle, one circle after another. All of them started to berate her fiercely. As though Yiqing Luo was an unpardonable evil person. But, as they were berating her, the commoners realized that the main character who was being berated had no reaction at all. There wasn't even any change in her expression. Their berating and insults were like punches onto cotton. This made the commoners' chests suffocated with anger. Some commoners followed Yiqing Luo's line of sight. They realized that Yiqing Luo was using such an icy cold gaze to stare at the deity in their hearts. The suppressed anger in their chests was ignited at this instance. What's that look? Who allowed you to use this kind of gaze to look at Miss Xiao Feng? If you scared Miss Xiao Feng or offended her, even if you died 1,000 times or 10,000 times, you still wouldn't be able to absolve yourself from the blame. What? You dare to stare at our Miss Xiao Feng? You hurt Miss Xiao Feng in the safety zone and you're still disrespecting her. You slut, you've already fallen to the safety zone and still treat yourself as a rich missy. One sentence stirred up 1,000 ripples. The commoners' support towards Xiao Feng made their hatred towards Yiqing Luo to explode. Especially the ladies, those who were jealous of Yiqing Luo's looks, were even more impolite when they spoke. In our place, having a beautiful face is of no use. Unless, you're like Miss Xiao Feng, in the safety zone, you have meritorious services. Otherwise, you're just an ordinary commoner. You're so arrogant. Do you think you can deceive a man to love you and stand up for you just because you have a face like a vixen? Let me tell you, in the safe zone, we don't care about looks, we only care about ability. Vixen. B*TCH. Jealousy makes people ugly. The eyes of these women were blinded by jealousy. The words that came out of his mouth became more and more unbearable. Everyone was cursing. Yi Qing Luo didn't mind it at all. Instead, she noticed it. While the commoners were besieging and cursing her, from under Xiaofeng's black veil, there was an extremely obvious sense of pride. It wasn't an illusion. Instead, he was truly proud of himself. And that indistinct provocation. Yi Qing Luo was almost certain. This black-robed woman called Xiao Feng was indeed targeting her, and her hostility towards her was very deep. He thought back to what Xiao Feng had said at the entrance of the mansion. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. This girl called Xiao Feng, what was his motive? Bang! Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo felt a weight on her arm. She saw a few ladies suddenly rushing forward and grabbing her arm. Their strength wasn't big, but they were good at being unreasonable. They locked Yi Qing Luo's hands tightly. Chapter 3161. Yi Qing Luo. She glanced sideways, squinting at the two ladies whose faces were distorted. The corners of her lips unconsciously twitched twice. Why did she feel? This group of people had a sense of déjà vu of the cult's brain-dead fans. All of them, their brains had probably been brainwashed by Little Feng. Looked like she had to investigate this Little Feng. What was her background? Yi Qing Luo had no mood to tangle with this group of commoners. She was about to take action, to shake off the two ladies who were hugging her tightly. At the main door, a loud and deep voice was suddenly heard. What are all of you arguing about? Is it because the days are too comfortable, and you can't stay idle anymore? This voice rang. The surrounding commoners suddenly went silent. Each of them shrunk their necks, and even their breathing became cautious. Even the two ladies who were holding Yi Qing Luo's limbs had their strength reduced. At the main door of the mansion, a tall and burly figure walked in. Behind him, there were 4 dignified soldiers dressed in armor, holding long spears. These 5 people had just stepped into the mansion. The surrounding commoners all revealed a joyful and grateful expression. Grand General, why did you come personally? Behind the crowd, Little Feng's slightly sharp voice was heard. She passed through the crowd and walked over slowly. A black robe, black muslin, as she walked, it was extremely elegant, like a black smoke, lingering around her. The leader was the Grand General. When the Grand General saw Little Feng, the dignified expression on his face softened. Miss Little Feng, it's been hard on you recently. It's not hard on Little Feng. Little Feng smiled slightly. It's hard on you, who are fighting in the front line. The Grand General also laughed a few times. Little Feng's vision floated behind the Grand General. I heard that the Grand General had just finished a battle yesterday and successfully destroyed the birds and beasts, as well as that army sent by the secluded palace. I wonder if there's anything that requires my help. Generally, the Grand General or his subordinates came over. Or they came over to send supplies. Or they came over to invite Miss Little Feng to treat the injured soldiers. The Grand General waved his hand. Thank you, Miss Little Feng, for your concern. The soldiers are not in any serious trouble. Miss Little Feng just needs to take good care of these commoners. That's enough. Xiao Feng was obviously stunned. Beneath the black veil, a pair of black eyes flickered with a bright light. After hesitating for a while, he slowly nodded his head. It's good that you're fine. If he's not here to look for Miss Xiaofeng to treat the soldiers, then why did the general come here personally? The commoner asked in confusion. The general laughed. I'm here to pick someone up. Before he could finish speaking, the general's gaze fell on senior maid Yang, who was still lying on the ground in an extremely comical position, looking up at the general. The general couldn't help but laugh. Old maid Yang, what's going on with you? Old Madame Yang often helped the soldiers in the safe zone and distributed some resources. She was also someone who had a few words with the soldiers. Hearing the great general's question, Matron Yang's eyeballs rolled around as she fiercely shot a stare towards the direction of Yi Qing Luo, who was being held down by the lady behind the crowd. Then, he slapped his thigh and started bawling, "You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."